I would scream. When will mankind turn from their evil? When will the children rise and shine? When will crime, violence and corruption? When will they leave the hearts of mankind? Lord, I search and I search, but I can't find neither purity, grace, or truth in mankind. Sometimes I feel like I want to scream and scream and scream and scream. Sometimes, Lord, I feel I could scream. When will our dreams become utopia? When will our sorrow cease to be? When will the poor no longer hunger? When will mankind be truly free? Lord, I search and I search, but I can't find the land of milk and honey and rivers full of wine. Sometimes I feel like I want to scream and scream and scream and scream. Sometimes, Lord, I feel I could scream. Give a fire.
That they were free, and slavery has lost its sting. But they're not foolish, they can see you're lying deep within. Slavery has not left out those not yet, I'm sure. We have got to fight the battle some more. The time has come for every man in the Caribbean. For one common destiny, designed to make our people free. We have got to stand up for the rights, to lead the lives we choose, to change and answer to refuse. If you think the battle is done, my brother, and you are riding an illusion, an illusion. You talk of progress, love and justice, peace and unity. All illusion. We have no hold on these our native islands. Our hands are tied, we don't control our actions. But then we forward together in a social endeavor, our goal. Social control, we slave no more, we slave no more. Only then we'll slave no more. We'll beg no more, we'll stoop no more. Only then we'll no more. Cannot live forevermore, subjected from shore to shore, reflecting paradise and shame against our ancestral name. I did no warriors left among us to rise and shine, no heroes left to rise up unto the shrine, no martyrs in our history for the youth to know. Scholars died to make us free, Puffy died to make us free, Gandhi died to make us free. Must all these warriors die in vain, while we go back to slavery once again? If you think the battle is done, my brother, and you are riding an illusion, an illusion. You talk of progress, love and justice, peace and unity. All illusion, all illusion. We have no hold on these our native islands. Our hands are tied, we don't control our actions.
balance. From the we work together in a social endeavor. Our own social control. We slave no more. We slave no more.
Only then we'll stay no more. We'll beg no more.
We'll stoop no more.
Only then we'll need no more. The struggle has only just begun. We've got to carry on. Uniting these West Indian lands may take us generations.
But independent in this region don't mean one down. If we can be independent as one, the economical policies are disheartening. The people's voices are ringing. We are tired of living a life of total subjection. Told what to spend and what to keep. God knows sometimes we ain't even have enough to eat. If you think the battle is done, my brother, if you are riding an illusion, an illusion. You talk of progress, love and justice, peace and unity. All illusions, all illusion. We have no hold and we know native islands. Our hands are tied.
Yes. Good night. Good night. And welcome again to another production of the Gemfm Radio Media House. And welcome to my friend Margaret and Lincoln Deputy. Welcome. I just play music so we can get like a refresher on our lives in the Caribbean, when and illusions and all this stuff that's happening around us. And tonight, folks, I want to thank you, both of you, first of all, for being first in the class, for being here. We are with Mr. Delbert Batiste. And tonight we'll be taking a look at the BVI and the situation that exists there. Hold on, let me see. People are not seeing me on Facebook yet. Hold on. I think I lost my capture there for that. Wow. I lost my capture for my online presence in Facebook. Hold on a second. I'm here on, I don't know what happened here, but somehow I disappeared from the screen. Yeah, here we are. Yeah, we are good people right here. Yes, so here we are. Magda always love that color, that print. Yeah.
Oh.
I love it. I see patriotic ism a little bit with Mr. Lincoln there. You wouldn't come out without it's all good, You gotta show some patriotism,
Yeah. It's all good. It's all good.
All good.
Yeah, patriotism is always key. That being said, tonight, we hear a lot of those of you listening to us out there for the very first time. Welcome to Gemfm Radio, broadcasting from 610 Vaughan Road in Great White North in Toronto, 610 Vaughan Road to be exact. Hudson George was just by me. He about a half an hour ago, so he'll be about half an hour late. But I don't know if he go and get feed for the pig or whatever, but he always, well, he's a farmer, so he might be getting some pig food somewhere, some good food or something like that. But he'll be
yeah. That takes a while.
Yes,
or the grass for the goats or whatever.
You know what I mean? I had to make sure all the rabbits stay in the pen because they keep happening around. So happen. Well, it's a pleasure to have you guys here. And another Saturday night, I really appreciate you guys taking time off your guys' busy schedule to be here with us on Gemfm to talk about things that is relevant, that need to be discussed, and giving rise to what happened around the world, and most recently in the Caribbean, where the BVI and the Premier have been charged for allegedly involving drug trafficking and money laundering. All right? And so all of you listening, please share the page. Whatever you have, just share to all your people on your page. Please share, because this is very important for us to listen to tonight because he's close to home in the Caribbean, and given the fact that one of the last of many Caribbean countries and is still in the hands of the British colonial power, that decides to suspend the constitution of the BVI and also to put in place a new premier. So all of that we'll be looking at tonight, the legality of the do and don'ts about suspend the constitution, the alleged drug charges and money laundering charges. And everybody here will give their personal view on what they take and take what it is. And if you out there want to chime in, you can call in. The number is on the screen, 437-980-7467, like Toro normally does. Call in when you have a time to, but no, he's here tonight, and he'll be talking about his views on the matter. Margaret, who also, there are two journalists, yes? And I journalists to give, and all is
Toro more practicing than me.
Once a journalist, always a journalist.
Once a soldier, always a soldier. Once a boy,
absolutely.
We can do all we want. Once a poet, you know what I'm saying? Our gift never evades us. We try to evade our gifts, yeah, but always stay with us. I think Shadow has a song. Memories don't leave like people do. Like one of those guys, yeah.
Right.
Our gifts sometimes don't leave us. Even though we try to leave it, we cannot escape it. It's always in us. Bob Mother asked a question all the time. How long have you been a Rastaman? He said from creation. As an oak tree is always going to be an oak tree. And every tree is trapped in the seed. Yeah? So we are the seed and there's something trapped in us that need to come out. So I think journalism is big. It's in all of us that need to talk and to tell stories and to bring the truth to the forefront. Well, tonight I'm really glad to have both of you here. We're going to continue until Hudson, George, and Delbert joins us. So tonight, I want to again welcome each of you to Gemfm Talking Point tonight. And I hope that tonight our audience and viewing audience and listening audience around the world will be able to be enlightened by the views expressed here. Again, the views expressed here not just about Gemfm, but individual persons. So please take note and take a pen and paper because something might be said tonight that you may want to question and want to share with somebody. And my friend James Gordon always said that the stillest ink is better than the greatest memory. Our memory sometimes fade away and we get older. We forget things and we put on a cup or we toothbrush and we have our cell phone and we're asking somebody for our cell phones, yes? Or we have our glasses on asking, Margaret, have you seen my glasses? And he said, John, the glasses on your eye, in your head. As we get older, a lot of things happen. So tonight, take your pen and paper and stay close because we have some people here tonight that will share and enlighten you on the opinion and stuff like that. So tonight I want to go straight to ladies first, to Margaret to introduce herself to the general public and viewers. Go ahead, Margaret. Welcome again to Gemfm.
Well, it's good to be here once more. I'm Margaret in the Big Apple, former journalist, more so than I'll just agree. But yeah, I'm not actively practicing what I do, from time to time, chime in on stuff and may write, some stuff from time to time. And works in healthcare otherwise when I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
All right, Toro. Pause on your phone.
Oh, my turn. Yeah. I'm Lincoln Toro Depardine. I'm based in Toronto, not New York as Margaret. Yeah, and I've been practicing journalism, PR, marketing. And once John invites me and I'm available, I'll show up, just to give my 2 pence, So I'm happy to be here. I hope Hudson and Delbert, they both show up, We need them on the show. Please put in an SOS. John, call them.
Yes, I have to put in an SOS. Hudson was just here. And he promised to come back. He just dropped out from here. One of the things that people see what you're doing and they feel that, obligated one way or the other. So that's just voluntary to drop out 2 pence to say, look, what does it go towards what the work you're doing to help improve and to do things. So he happened to drop by with an envelope, today. want to congratulate him for that as well. You know, so again, if you're looking to help Gemfm, please do so. Go outside him. Don't be afraid to go on the donate on the site and donate at 2 pence. It'll help us to go a very long way. So tonight, I want to start with Margaret. Given the present situation, I know many of us have been listening to what happened in BVI. First of all, I want to tackle the question of the Constitution suspension. Should we go? Yeah, let's do the suspension first. Is it right or is it wrong for the British to suspend the Constitution of a colony at will and reinstate somebody, install somebody that they feel favorable to them?
Okay, so I think probably you need to give a little background because probably some people may not know what exactly the situation is. Right. So the short version of that story is that the leader of the British Virgin Islands was arrested in Miami on charges of drug trafficking and money laundering, right? It was a DEA sting operation apparently, and he got caught in it. Prior to that, though, I think in 2021 was it? There was also an investigation that was launched by Britain into corruption and everything else that goes with, that you see happening in the Caribbean a lot. So there was also that. So I think coming out of that was this recommendation for the suspension and talk about suspending and taking over. No, I mean, it's difficult though to say whether or not it's right or wrong for the simple reason that the BVI, unlike say Grenada or some other Caribbean territories, is not independent. It's still a British overseas territory. And so I guess England still has a measure of control over what takes place there locally. So while I guess from a personal perspective and maybe from my own beliefs and stuff, suspending the Constitution and instituting somebody else rankles a bit. I have to look at it within the context of what the BVI status is within the British, overseas territory thing. So I guess from that, if I were to look at it from purely that perspective, I guess there's not too much that you can say. The Brits probably have the right to step in and say, okay, you've just messed up, you got to go. And, do whatever they want to do and put somebody else in. That's kind of like my take on it from that perspective. I mean, but from an ideological perspective, yes, it's problematic for me.
Problem. All right. So here you go. So that was Margaret. It's deputy. That's what is in, but we're going to do Lincoln first and come out there, but after. Your mic is muted. Yes, you're muted now. Yeah.
Fundamentally, I agree with what Margaret has just said. We need to know a little bit more about the background, what's been happening, exactly what the UK government has been investigating in the BVI. As Margaret has said, ideologically, I have a whole heap of problem with colonization because BVI is a colony still. And I believe, to me, every country should be free to run their affairs, no matter how small they are, no matter how big they are, no matter what the size of the population. The people who live in a BVI have a right to run their own internal affairs. And in that case, if the BVI is a colony, right, and the British is basically running the country, if there is any corruption, any bad behavior, the British is as culpable as the people in the BVI because they are in charge of the place fundamentally, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is, I'm just wondering whether in the context of all the bad publicity, I mean, and this is just a speculation, the bad publicity surrounding the recent visit to the Caribbean by the royal family members, whether the British, don't see this as an opportunity to kind of flex a little bit of muscle and say, listen, we are still here, we are still present. I mean, there are a whole lot of things that we don't know. We are only skimming the surface. But you can't rule that out. They say, okay, all this thing is happening. This guy got charged. We've been investigating. Wow. We've been handed something on a platter here. Let's flex a little bit of muscles to show we are still present. So there's a whole bunch of things that we need to look at. Yeah.
Right. We go for good there, but you know, there's a saying that they let the cow to graze in the yard. They let it free to go on the fence. And I think in that case, that's what it is to the British. They have them grazing the yard, fenced in. So whenever they step over the fence, they go put them back in place. Given the fact that all of this colonialism and slavery and independence has been given, in most cases, in most Caribbean countries, the British still will, at their will, they will come in, other grain service in the field to invade and whatever they want to do to install. They will do it. America does it all the time. In sovereign countries, Russia have done it to Ukraine, and the bigger powers that have seen that they have the muscle and the might to do whatever they want. And we see that even though that there is corruption in England, there is corruption too. You know, there's corruption everywhere, right? But they take a different approach when it comes to the what is so-called colony, which is like the BVI, for example. So a lot of people might say, yes, let them take him away, haul him away, suspend the constitution and do what they want. But the question, the real big question is, how are we going to say that it's legal? Or just because they have the right to do it, they just take it and do what they want to do. Delbert, good night.
Good evening, comrade. Good evening, Margaret. Good evening, Toro.
Good evening.
I heard the tail end of Margaret's comment, so I didn't hear the beginning. And I'm glad that she and Toro is giving me cover because I had the similar position. I was worried when I was going to be alone, you know, because listen, obviously, it's shameful that in 2022, given all that has transpired in the Caribbean over the last 67 years, that the British still have their hands in our pockets or their fists around our necks. And they have not done anything to really tremendously develop these islands with former colonies. They have not helped. It's turning out now that while you know, I have a few British friends who when I criticize them for their sort of their lifelong anti-colonial past, they tell me, well, you know, you live in the United States now, so how could you complain, you know? And I'm like, guys, the people in the United States who did that, you know where they came from, right? So let's not forget that. But the reality is that it's just shameful that at this time that they still basically own colonies in the Caribbean and can go in and do whatever they want. And I suspect that there's going to be some other some other stuff is going to happen. You know, there are going to be other probably political figures that's going to come up. You remember a couple of years ago, the British arrested an Antiguan minister of tourism and economic development who was traveling on a diplomatic passport.
He was a minister, I think.
Yeah, he was a minister. He was minister of tourism and Ascot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a minister.
Yeah.
And so they feel that they pretty much can do whatever they want. I have some real background on that story, by the way, that I'm not can't disclose publicly. But there was actually corruption. It was wide ranging, and at the time, I was involved with a group who was trying to do some business in Antigua, and I mean just how these guys handled the thing, it was just so blatant. And actually, I was contacted by an agency from London from the British government, and they came to New York to interview me, you know. And so when he was arrested, I was not surprised. But as a lifelong anti-colonialist, as somebody who believes in the rights of nations, as you say, Toro, doesn't matter whether they're 10 square miles or a million square miles, people certainly have a right to to manage their own affairs. You know, the British are actively involved today with the U.S. in providing weapons and intelligence and all of the support for the people in Ukraine, and they're saying that is their right to exist as an independent nation. Why isn't that same thinking applied to folks in the Caribbean? Is it because we're a different color? You know, so it's problematic. I saw the statement that was put out by the OECS. I thought it was a really, really strong statement. It was a good statement. But that's really all it is. You know, there's not much they can do, because in itself, the BVI was not a full chartered member of the the OECS, because they are not responsible for their own foreign affairs. So that's controlled by the British. You know, I was thinking about this a little bit more. Right, so Grenadians can freely travel to London, but you can't just travel there, stay and work and do whatever you want and enjoy all the benefits as a British citizen. But yet still, and that's true of other islands, the Queen is of our head of state. So if the Queen is my head of state, why can't I travel there and live and enjoy? I mean, this thing is, these people are bold about their you know, there's a way that they tend to justify these things one against the other. You know, this is good enough for you, this is not good enough for you. A different standard for a different set of people who looks more like them, who probably speaks more like them. And it's just going to be interesting to see whether or not other Caribbean political leaders get caught up in this in this net, and whether or not, as an institution, the OAS and certainly CARICOM would stand up to the British. I don't know that is going to be the case. I mean, we probably have some leaders in the Caribbean saying the right thing, but as Toro say, sometimes they say one thing in public and then behind the scene they make deals and compromise that sell us out over and over again, you know. And I'm very cautious to go out on a limb for Caribbean this crop of Caribbean political leaders.
Right. Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I mean, I don't see them going out on a limb. Some of them may be busy covering their own butts because boyfriend has threatened to spill the beans.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you know, everybody is sitting, I guess, in their own little zones, probably busy putting all their ducks in a row to make sure they don't get caught. Yes. Because, you know, every little one of them have their little skeletons in their closets that they probably don't want people to know about or to get out there. You know, and I mean, in spite of everything we say, we have to face the reality that corruption and maladministration and incompetence and everything else is rampant in the Caribbean.
Yeah. But my response to that is that it's the same kind of corruption and stuff that exists in the same countries that come down the BVI and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, my own hunch is that none of this could have happened with this guy without the knowledge and support and facilitation of people in the North. So for instance, again, the BVI is a British colony for all intent and purposes, which fundamentally means that control every square inch of that island, the intelligence, the everything. Mm-hmm. You want to tell me these guys didn't know this guy was involved in this stuff, right? So, you know, and Margaret and I are involved in journalism. The first version of our story is not always the real story, right? So somebody robs a grocery store and the police come and ask, what the guy look like? Somebody said the guy is 6 feet, somebody said 5'9", somebody said 5'8". But as the investigation continues, the police get a better profile, right? So my own instinct tells me that there is more to the story than we getting right now, right? Maybe when did the British get to know this guy involved in money laundering and drug trafficking? They control every square inch of that island, the intelligence, the US, they control it, right? I want to know if this guy crossed somebody that decided, listen, you are no longer useful to us, so we're going to turn you over, right?
That's
there
probably,
must be more to this. There must be more to this story than this guy. This guy could never be traveling between the BVI and the US and England without all this big sort of intelligence not knowing he's involved in something. Right. So my hunch tell me that somebody decided, you see, you either playing too big for a breach or you're no longer useful. So you were expendable. This is the same thing to Daniel Noriega. When Noriega was doing all the stuff for them, when they get tired of them, they say, boy, you know, we will come and take you on. The BPI suspended the constitution. The US decided to go mash up the whole of Panama to get this one man, right? Yes. So the playbook is basically they've been doing it for 200 years. So it's nothing new. So I don't really get exercise or alarm when these things happen. We just have to wait and just let me put it on the table. If this guy is guilty, let him pay the price. Let him charge him. Let him convict him. Let him go to jail. I said shedding no tears for this guy. But to me, as Margaret and I said, I have a whole issue with the colonial thing, colonizing countries still. And the whole issue of, which to me, you got to put this in a larger context of wealthy, strong nations imposing the will on smaller countries in various ways, right? It is when we are growing marijuana and they tell us they send down planes to destroy all the marijuana trees, right? It is if we set up our offshore bank, they tell us, now we like the offshore bank, shut it down. So in various ways, all they're doing is knocking us left, right, and center. And I was happy to see whether anything comes out of it. Mia Motley and some of the other Caribbean leaders met with Maxine Waters recently, and they said, listen, we are not like our foreparents. We're going to push back a little bit about you guys now you're telling us to do this and stuff. So at some point, we had to stand up as a region and decide, no, because there's no reciprocity in the way this thing operates. You tell me, any country in the Caribbean or Africa could arrest a North American or European politician with a diplomatic passport on any charge. This thing has to be a level playing field. There is no country in the Caribbean or Africa could arrest a visiting politician from North America and Europe, no matter what the crime is. You listen to the American news. No American overseas get charged. They never said they're guilty. There's a basketball player in Russia, but I said nothing is wrong. The girl did nothing. No, none of them ever do anything wrong. So again, my thing is there's no reciprocity in the way the world order operates. So whether it comes to banana, marijuana, or this guy, let him take his jail. He has to go to jail. But I have a real problem, as we said earlier, with the way they treat us. Like the entire
you're so correct about that, because a couple of years ago, there was an incident with the wife of an American diplomat, and she was traveling somewhere in the Midlands in England, and had a vehicular accident, and somebody died from it. And the local authorities obviously, wanted to have her arrested and charged, and the US and the Foreign Office in Britain had her out of London so quickly, So we are not afforded those kind of courtesies, we are not afforded the kind. But as somebody who has been I've been a lifelong opponent of this kind of hard drugs that has done so much to destroy so many lives.
Hold on. Before we go there in the drug thing, I want to just clarify the one thing with the Constitution before we go back in there. The constitutionality of the British. I want to agree on that, so people listening to us understand that before we jump into the other part of the arrest and what led up to that and stuff like that. Because there's a lot of stories between that with the Port Authority minister personnel and her son also involved in that whole thing too. We set up all of that. But we know, and we The British don't even have a constitution of their own, but they give other people, other countries, a constitution to govern them, but they have none for themselves. But then they want to impose on other people what they should have, how they should run their country. As a former colonial, there's so it is. But can we decide? Can the BVI people decide that they don't want the British to rule them anymore under the constitutional order? I could demand it, ask for the independence, have a referendum on independence and get the independence of Britain.
You would see a warship there within 48 hours.
I mean, I'm sure they can. Not necessarily. But believe it or not, the British people don't necessarily want these appendages anymore. They're not useful. They want to get rid of them. I mean, because they figure, as long as they have them there, they have to support them in some way or the other and stuff. So they really don't want them. But I mean, I don't know. I see no reason why if the people of BVI wanted full independence from Britain.
But there must be some benefit for the
who hold on to
UK to be having them. Yeah, there must be some.
Right, because remember too, remember BVI is not the only territory in the Caribbean. So too is Turks and Caicos, Cayman Islands, Anguilla.
Yeah.
Anguilla still is. Is Montserrat?
Yeah.
Montserrat still is.
Yeah, Montserrat too.
Montserrat still is.
So there's still a few of them around the region. Well,
and we're just talking the English-speaking Caribbean. If you talk the French, you have Guadeloupe, Martinique, and all that stuff. Yeah. But they must. I mean, yes, I agree, Joe, that these territories must be a burden for the European capital cities. But there must be a benefit to having them. So there must be a benefit to having them.
Yeah. The question is, what is that benefit?
Then I can't show something.
Yeah, Margaret, I agree that it is. But they want to get rid of it on their own terms. I still think if there were massive demonstration in the BVI, let's say calling any serious pushback against what they have done, they would send them troops.
That's the thing. I haven't. It would be interesting to know what people in the BVI thought about it.
Let me throw something inside here. Could it also be a proxy that the US want that territory to, because they see it important for the British, that they want to have the same benefit or want to have full control of that BVI to have that region to them?
No, because they own the USVI.
So
you have USVI. I mean, it's the set of islands that's split between the two, BVI and USVI.
And Puerto Rico. So all of that in the mix. Is there something that the US really want full control of all the territories there for themselves? So that might be a good. Because listen, the whole idea of controlling the region, right? The British and the Americans see as it's still part of the. Yes, that's our territory. We need that. Would that be a reason for the British to say, let me get back in there and get rid of this guy because it might be. We don't want to lose that to the US. So let's go and take control. Let's take full control of it again for the next 2 years.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I haven't seen anything to suggest that.
I find it, it's kind of strange, right? Because the status that the BVI enjoys now is a similar status that Grenada. That's what when you don't they have statehood? I'm trying to remember these terms.
For BVI.
They have statehood, right? Because they have a premier.
And they do have a governor.
In order to have a premier, you would have had to be in statehood.
Something similar,
as against having that what they used to call the chief minister.
So
isn't that like an internal matter? How is that? I mean, obviously if he's guilty and he's shipping drugs or facilitating it, would that be viewed as an internal matter?
Well, the question leads to a thing. Why arrest him in Miami? You see?
They probably lured him to Miami.
Well, and Delbert, you see that word you use there, lured? That's a problem that I have with these entrapment type things. Because, apparently, you know, somebody posing as a DEA agent,
Yes.
you know, I mean, whether it's him or anybody else, I just have a problem with entrapment.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how you call it. I mean, and look, somebody could be really guilty of what they did. But for me personally, I just have, what happens if somebody is not guilty? You know, but because you believe something and you set a trap and the person falls into the trap, you know, I just don't, I don't, I mean, I understand that it's a tool in solving a crime, but yet still is something that I always find problematic.
Right.
Yeah.
Every time I hear that, you know, you arrested somebody because you set up a sting, you know, it's like every warning signal in my body goes off.
Yeah, because you haven't found him caught him in an actual crime. There was assumption of a crime that he's been committing. So he said, you know what, I need to get this guy. You know, like
but they claim that they have wiretaps and what have you.
Sure, but there was exactly, but it was a sting operation.
Yes.
Yeah, clearly.
Ultimately, I mean, you know,
and they may have just found that this guy had shown some weakness on some other small issues, and they say, let's see what he would bite on, and completely set him up into this thing when that was not even his thing, you know.
Okay, so then the lady, the Port Authority woman and her son got involved in the whole mix with that as well, right? So she, according to the news report, that she was approached and she decided to draft him in because she thought he might have been he best want to go along with it. Yeah. So she set him up into the scheme. So you see, they work from the bottom up to him, and they got him. Now she and her son is also involved in the whole thing. So he now is preparing to testify for what is so-called leniency or lesser sentence for the crime, the alleged crime. Yes. So what will happen then if he decide to speak out and call other Caribbean leaders' name?
Well, we will see which Caribbean leaders are refusing to travel to the US and England very shortly.
You know, as you talk about the suspension of the Constitution, John, just as a point of reference, remember the British did that to Grenada in 1962 with Gary. He said Gary was. I mean, they always take
one of the articles that came up, they talk about Barrow speaking out against the suspension of the Grenada Constitution. Yeah. So, and they also refer, I didn't realize they had done the same thing in Guyana too.
Exactly. They did that to Chedi Jagan, yeah. So the British has this way.
I didn't know that.
I mean, they take a hammer to a little.
They have a playbook. They have the playbook.
Yeah. You know.
Hold on. So you tell me that, okay, you suspend the Constitution. Can we make one for ourselves, from the people, for ourselves? Yes? Can we not do that? Why do we have to wait for them to give us back? It's okay, keep yours. I don't need yours. Can we just say that and have our own constitution out of our own people for ourselves?
Yeah.
Sure, you'd have those man o' wars outside your show so fast you wouldn't know what hit you. As my grandmother used to say before you say Jack Robinson.
Yeah, because you see that even if they don't care about the islands or not benefiting tremendously from it, they would not like to put up with that embarrassment of this, you know, what the BVI is about 60 square miles, I think, or something in that area.
Yeah, I think 50, and they have a population. Their population is under 30,000.
Yeah, so that would be a huge poke in the eye for Britain, and they're not going to put up with it, man.
Yeah.
You remember how anal they were about the Falkland Islands, and all they had out there was herds of sheep.
So, John, the other thing though that this shows, and even among us here tonight, kind of scrambling, wondering about the constitutional setup and of the BVI. It also shows that we ourselves, even at our level, we are so detached from some aspect of the Caribbean that, for me, for example, I don't know how strong like a pro-independent movement there is in the BVI. What solidarity we have been given them. The other thing with these countries too is that we may talk independence, why about independence, but I'm sure there's a lot of people in there who are quite happy to be British subjects.
Exactly.
Maybe they enjoying a good, they have a nice hospital, the kind of hospital we dream about in Grenada. So they are quite happy to be subjects of Her Majesty the Queen.
That's very true.
But the point I make earlier is that colonization has cut us off from our brothers and sisters from the rest of the Caribbean, even the English-speaking Caribbean, that are further north or further east, and especially those who don't speak English. And that works in the favor of Europe, you know what I mean? Like things happen and we're scrambling right now to understand the BVI, you know? So
and you know, that's a real strong point that Toro makes there about the disconnect in the Caribbean among the various islands, you know, the Northern Caribbean, the Eastern Caribbean, the Southern Caribbean kind of stuff. I have known people who've worked in BVI. I mean, I know people from Grenada who worked in BVI, for example, and you know, there are these perceptions of, you know, viewing the rest of the Caribbean, the Southern Caribbean, a certain way, kind of like similar to how the Bahamians view the Southern Caribbean a certain way. You know, their focus is north. Anything south of them is like, no, we don't want to hear kind of stuff. You know, so sometimes.
But they import a lot of people from the Eastern Caribbean. As a matter of fact, the head matron at that hospital that you spoke about, Toro, is comes from my village in Chantimel. She is the head matron in the hospital. So they even had a former assistant police commissioner who originated from River Sally.
Yeah, but that's all well and good. I mean, you're a necessary evil. Doesn't mean
yes.
Right, but
that just me.
That kind of work in a way of sort of like, again, it's sort of like a plantation thing where you're taking people by force now. You're to use your word, you're lowering them with good salaries and benefits. To come in, you want the plantation. So you're already attached to any struggle there. So I come from Grenada, I get a big job, and I really want to get involved in the local politics to rock the boat.
Exactly.
You understand? So to keep everything nice and cozy, you know.
But you know what? And you know that kind of like, you know what that reminds me of instantly as Toro says that? Dubai.
Yeah.
So you could go there and, you know, they would lure you there to work and to do all their stuff, right? They're doing absolutely nothing. You can never become a citizen and you can never live there permanently.
Yeah.
But it's foreigners that run those countries, right? Foreigners do every single thing, from cleaning the streets to everything else. The native people don't know anything.
I think Black Wizard have a song called "I Come Back Again." No more knife and bayonet or something like that. But it's no more dogs and whatever. But it's I come back to claim all the lands by the shore to build my big bungalow. I come back again. And if you remember that song, Wizard. And you know, when you listen to those songs now, how relevant it is to the present crisis in the BVI. But if we go back a little bit more, the Great Revolution and the leadership of Maurice made a statement that they come down to the Caribbean, they say if you're speaking English, you're the best. If you speak best. And most recently, if you're American speaking, you're the best. have great planning for guidance and so on. But not only that, the Great Revolution has suspended their constitution and wanted to have their own constitution out of their own. And I think that also has been a problem for them as well. How you could suspend our constitution, you know, and how you could decide to do it for yourself. We gave you that. We don't want to lose that. We want to give it. But the significant thing about that whole suspension of the Grenada Constitution was not in totality. It was a certain section of it was suspended for obvious reasons. I think Bonham Code had made it clear on the show that it was, you can arrest people and then they go get a lawyer right after they get out of prison, walk the streets again. You couldn't let that happen. So certain clause in the constitution was suspended. It wasn't the whole constitution because the government was still functioning. It still had the power school representative there, and for obvious reasons. So
the only thing we didn't have was the parliament. That suspension of constitution sounded nice, but it really was not, because how could you have suspended the constitution and not gotten immediately ignore the authority or so-called authority of the governor general? And I don't know if you remember that we had changed the police uniform and had to change it back. You remember that?
No, that one's past me.
No,
Yeah,
I
come
don't
on, man.
remember.
The revolution, after as part of that whole mantra, after suspending the constitution, we went to a sort of khaki and green uniform.
Khaki and green was the prison, I know.
No. The police department went to a khaki and green uniform.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yes.
I don't remember.
And then the British, were very unhappy about that, because two of the most important offices in Grenada is the Prime Minister and the Commissioner of Police.
Yeah.
All right, and they were not happy about that. And there was some, not necessarily threats, because the revolution had enjoyed sort of favorable relationship with Britain during that time, but they were forced to go back to what we still have there, that navy and red and blue and whatever,
Wow.
Okay.
They left. We left the SSU, that unit that still stayed in the police, still thing, because they were sort of determined to be a sort of quasi paramilitary unit operating kind of between the army and between the police. So they stayed, but the rest of the police had to go back to the old uniform.
Same folks talking about they came for the training in Panama. They came back just before the revolution, right? That group talking about Rodriguez James was part of that was Bonacote Post and Security was head
in Panama or Chile?
Panama, they trained in Panama. That's right, Panamanian training. Some training in Chile, but some of the training in Panama, I remember. Because Rodriguez James, who became up until the invasion, he and I served and with personal security. He was also a part. I came from that unit and came into PS, personal security, right?
Yeah.
Security unit. So he was part of that. That unit was always there pre-1979. I have to remember that it was all in green, dressed in green as well. I think that brother from Munich, a couple of other fellows I knew was part of that unit that came from Panama and training. So I don't know how to miss the unit.
Wait. But they were police?
Yeah, there was police, but it was a different special branch sort of a thing. I know to miss that.
I mean, I know a set had trained in Chile, and they were
But that trained under Gary.
They were in the military. They were Green Beasts.
Yeah, that's Gary people that train in Chile.
Yeah.
It was different from the Green Beast. It was not attached to the Green Beast unit. It was a special branch, the SSU, a special unit that came from.
No. SSU was not. SSU was first created during the revolution.
No, not SSU. He's talking about another unit that was created in the police.
Yeah, between the police and the Green Beast, there was a special unit.
Yeah, of course. Wasn't that special branch?
Special branch, that's what we call them. Yeah.
I think it was special branch,
Yeah. I think it was special branches, like
Yeah, but these guys used to regularly go overseas. They used to go to Jamaica. They used to go to Barbados. I remember my ex, now deceased brother-in-law, actually even went to Scotland Yard to train for a good 6 months to a year. He was in England training in Scotland Yard, So there had always been that.
But there was also military training as well. But they went to places like Chile, for example, under Pinochet.
But the Chile thing was a very small unit. It was about 3 to 5 people that went to Chile.
Yeah, I know, because one of them used to train us in cadets.
Yeah.
I mean, it was rumored that these guys went out to torture people. I don't know whether or not that was actually accurate, or that, obviously it helped our cause at the time. But the NJM had infiltrated that unit, because I know a comrade who went to Chile who was one of the main resources for the NJM in providing them information on Gary's whereabouts and his activities and his plans. So it's amazing what counterintelligence how helpful it can be in your cause.
I thought this something about that. I remember I'm in high school and I was training as a counterintelligence officer. Can you imagine that? So it's like you see John as a student, and John is there. So I'm everywhere, And one day I went to a session and I see a guy who always looked drunk in Grenville, walking a beer in his hand every time, and did not know. And that girl, brother, I think you guys know him, Nicholas, from Munich. Always have a beer in his hand, like that beer never finished. I always have a beer in his hand, and when I went to a meeting, one of the guys showed up as part of the undercover operation team. I said,
yeah, there were quite a few like that. I knew one that we even gave cover in the Ministry of Youth and Sports. So
yeah, so I think Ivan says here his name was also changed from the police force to the police service. Yeah, under the PRG.
Yeah,
Right.
and change back. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We need to change that too. Yeah, Her Majesty Prisoner, Her Majesty Royal Grenadier Police Force. You know, that gives them a try to come in and take it back for them guys. There's, but so moving on from the legality of the constitutional bearing on the BVI, the suspension of the Constitution. I want to focus a little bit now on the charges that was laid against the leader and the ultimate arrest. You know, we have read widely in different media houses about what happened to the leading up of the arrest and stuff like that. And the same have done to Charles Taylor. They lured him from Sierra Leone to Ethiopia and arrested him again and bring him to The Hague and charge him for war crimes and crimes against humanity. What would happen to this leader now if he happened to be found guilty? Margaret?
Well, I guess my guess is that if they find him guilty, he will land in a U.S. jail.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he's going to land.
Noriega, and stay there and then die, and then take him to France and end up dying in prison.
Yeah, but I guess he'll probably just stay in a U.S. jail. I mean, he's kind of like not in the same category as Noriega.
Noriega, yeah.
And then the other thing is too, he's a British citizen. So the rules of engagement are kind of slightly different here, because even when they arrested him, they had to notify the Brits. Because even if they were working together and they may have to like go to, because I saw the sense that there had to be some coordination between them with this whole thing.
So that begs the question though. Why I think the Commissioner of Police was not aware of the sting operation that was going on. How you do a sting operation in a country and not inform the Commissioner of Police?
They probably didn't trust anyone.
Well, again, I think you still you see John, you kind of like thinking you have to realize that they're not operating along the same lines as a Grenada or Trinidad or Jamaica. So you cannot use that yardstick to do theirs. Their situation is different. Right. And remember, there was already, as I said, there was already an investigation that the Brits started the year before. And that investigation was also looking at money laundering and drug trafficking within the government as well, in addition to the corruption that they said was taking place. So this is why I'm thinking that it may have been some collusion between they and the United States, because, you know, the announcement of his arrest here and the British report kind of like coincided on the same thing, you know. So, you know,
the British Commissioner, Ambassador, whoever is, we know some charges of some failed project that never happened. Started, money was put into it and never happened, and the money was already passed. So all of that was seen as shady dealings that happened in the BVI. It was supposed to be done and was not even like the government.
But I mean, that's something separate to the drug-related charges. I don't see one have anything to do with the other. The other thing is that remember, there's another. Well, he was a former minister of Barbados. Innes, he's in jail too.
Oh
after the last election.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Didn't
they arrest him in the US?
Yeah, the US. Yeah. So I mean, like, you know, we just like sitting ducks. Like, you know, they could do anything. I mean, one of the things though is like I remember the comrade this guy in Grenada, the US wanted to extradite it. I mean, and that's another thing. Yeah? I know we have a thing in Grenada, and I always tell people that a lot of it is overblown and exaggerated. And in a sense, I believe we are a little more divided now than we have ever been. And people have taken that political thing to another level.
Right.
But this guy, when the US wanted to extradite him, right? Chester Humphrey, and he was a big NGM, was a big PRG guy. Chester said, the people who supported this petition that he should remain in Grenada span the spectrum from all Garyites, NGM, NNP, GNP people. I very much doubt if that happens to anybody today in Grenada, you'll be able to find 100 people across the spectrum to support that cause.
Yeah, and that's very.
So something is.
Very,
I mean,
very
that
important.
bothers me that we haven't learned to separate issues. So let's fight a political fight, but as nationals, let me do certain things. But the point I'm making, we have some good things going, but in a way we kind of losing them. And I'm saying that if that happens today, I'm not sure if you'll find that kind of support across the spectrum. We've become
I think
a little too polarized
I don't think you
nowadays.
will. Yeah, I don't think you will. I think
yeah.
that polarization seems to be global too.
Yeah. It's just gone. Yeah. Mm.
And sometimes it could be really petty too, because I know a very, very progressive brother of mine, very good. When Chester switched political alliances a couple of years ago, he was so irate that he was writing on Facebook that this man is wanted by the US and we should extradite him. And this is a brother that I have known to be progressive all his life, anti-colonialist, anti-imperialist. But all of a sudden now, this guy switched political parties on him and he's ready to sacrifice him. And I'm like, really, bro? Really?
I can't figure it out, you know?
Yeah, you know. And by the way, he still today is a big promoter of the Grenada Revolution, and I'm like, you still want?
But I think it also points to the individuality of human beings, right? I mean, ultimately, we're just.
Morgan, this guy is a serious guy. He knows better.
But that's okay. But I guess
Yes.
Yeah. Just
Not doing better is two different things.
Yes, that's true.
I think Mr. X in a song make a mention about when NDC won, we thought we had the revolution back, but you realize it was not the real Mackay, The real revolutionary is still not stepping forward. We have a sort of a type, a fraction that is sort of whitewash with NGM and so on, revolution is in it. But when you put it on the paint, what I hit it, not really revolution deep down inside. So they associate anything that could benefit them. I mean, can you imagine? Just saying, I mean.
But listen, we have a bigger problem here. If this thing turns out, if it is true that he is giving up other people and, we don't know, this thing could destabilize the Caribbean. The question it can, if all of a sudden you have 3, 4, or 5 other senior political leaders in the Eastern and Northern Caribbean involved in this, we don't know whether that's going to play out, and for some reason that information gets out or these people are even arrested, it can seriously destabilize these countries.
Also,
but you gotta take care of that before you spill the beans.
Yeah. I mean, if these people the US consider them friends, there's no way they're going to let them think. Yeah, it depends on who. You know what I mean?
But what does the US really consider friends? Okay, they tell us a lot about the Russians calling people useful idiots,
Right.
They have their own terminology for it, because the US clearly views the Caribbean as their sphere of operation, their backyard, so to speak.
Okay.
So that whether you friend or foe, and for whatever reason, anything that you may be involved in that they feel for some reason either embarrasses them or threaten them. What kind of threat? I don't even know what it could be. They'll take you out. They'll find a way to take you out.
Right, that's true. But I'm saying is, like, if there are two options, let's say they have Gilbert, they'll consider them extremist leftists, and they have me like a right wing, and I love flying to the US. They're taking away Delbert. I mean, that's it. I mean,
expendable.
That's it.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Situation in Trinidad. Recently, I talked about this in Trinidad. The former Minister of Finance under Manin make mention of certain people that was looking for position to do money laundering. Once they get involved in one government position, they want port authority positions so they could launder money easily. And she said that they have lists of names of the people, and they approach her, but she was not a softie, she was not a sellout. So they stay far away from her in terms of trying to bribe her. She wasn't taking bribes, but other people took bribes. And she said that she alleged that the former Prime Minister have a list of names of persons who was had approached him and who was involved in those activities. So again, you have a lot of people in Trinidad now probably start thinking, I don't know if my name might come up, kind of thing. Like she went on the show and she started talking about what she know, but she wouldn't call the names until that become public or something that she would not be involved because the names were shared to her.
Well, so far only Jack Warner has stood up to them and given them the middle finger. So, but listen, this is funny. You're talking about that Trinidad thing. Today I got a notification on Facebook saying somebody had tagged me in a photo thing, and I was like, okay. So I went in to look, and the picture was not me. Guess who the picture was? The picture was the Prime Minister of Trinidad. And I'm like, I don't think we look anything, But Facebook told me I was tagged by this person in a photo. I went to look and they had a picture of the Prime Minister of Trinidad. And I'm like, this is a little uncomfortable,
If you get arrested in the United States next time you travel. Yeah. With all of that, I mean, the drug trafficking, the money laundering, how widespread is that in the Caribbean? That is the sort of citizen by investment has contributed to that, those kind of activities, you think? Toro?
Probably, yes. Probably if that. I mean, the thing is that money laundering and drug trafficking. I mean, often we have this fantasized notion of the Caribbean, and people sometimes see that posted on social media about paradise, and one person get murdered in Grenada, and they say, what's happening to the little rock? We used to be a paradise. Listen, the Caribbean lost its innocence since Europe came in contact with the indigenous people, right? Yeah. When people tell us like the worst crime has never been so bad in whether it's Trinidad, Grenada, Jamaica. It depends on where you start counting from. It depends on where you start counting that crime from. Right? Yeah. Listen, Jamaica have a set of guns thing, and all of us abhor the gun and violence. But nobody in Jamaica has a gun manufacturing company. The guns are coming from somewhere.
Yes.
The small man had no plane to bring in no guns, in manufacturing no guns. Right. The point I'm making is that what has happened in the Caribbean now has been happening for centuries. It just happened that some of the smaller men on the food chain have become involved in it, and they are the ones getting arrested, and we get alarmed, right?
Correct.
And I'm not saying that to condone what's happening. I'm saying we have to stop and try to eliminate it. But the putting shiny object for us to keep looking at the small man, they're arrested and stuff like that. But some very big people, whether it's at the premier level, Prime Minister, President, people in the police force, judges and lawyers, I suspect are also involved in that, because you don't do these things using a fishing boat. If a man using a fishing boat, he could only bring in a little bit of marijuana or cocaine.
Exactly.
Right? So again, I'm alarmed. I'm not condoning it. If this guy in the BVI did what they said he did, he should go to jail. I'm making no excuse for that. But I think we have to, and I always say that on the show, we have to be more sober-minded and level-headed and look at these things and try and put it in perspective and in context, right? The Caribbean has always been a place where these people did this stuff. Again, I'm saying the smaller man getting involved, we don't like it, but to eliminate these things, we have to go to the source and we have to deal with everybody.
And I think in addition to that too, I mean, another thing that I think sometimes people don't look at when I see these things, what are the existing social conditions?
Exactly.
People don't even tie in, people talk about the rise in crime, this place is bad and stuff, but let's look at the social conditions that create that. You think that everybody who's involved in crime want to be involved in crime? I'm not saying that somebody who commits a crime shouldn't be punished, but we need to look at the conditions that create that kind of individual. And Trinidad is a classic case. The Trinidad that I was born into is nothing like the Trinidad it is today, which is not to say that crimes didn't happen and this kind of stuff. But what you have had in Trinidad, particularly in the areas that are high crime areas, you find these areas were redlined. If you live in these areas, you can't get a job.
Yeah.
If that's the address, you cannot get a job. And people would tell you bluntly, they will not hire. I mean, I have brothers in Trinidad who said to me, and these are businessmen and, and professionals and stuff, they will not hire people from these neighborhoods. And I'm looking at them like, well, what do you mean you're not hiring somebody from there? You just have to put that on your resume and you're not getting a job. So let me find out from you then. If you're telling me that somebody from Over Laventille or one of the other areas, or, right, can't get a job because of their address, how is that person supposed to live? Aren't we supposed to be responsible working citizens, right? And live off of what we make? But if you tell that person that they can't get a job by virtue of the fact that they're from Over Laventille, what is that person supposed to do? How are they supposed to eat? So is the person from Valside more important, or the person from, all the other bourgeois areas that they got, right? Are they more entitled to a life than the person who lives in Over Laventille?
I'm glad you make that point, because the interview I was listening to with the Minister of Education, former Minister of Finance from Trinidad and Tobago under the Manning government, she made that exact point you're making. She said that there's poor areas in Trinidad, in the south, in south that is more poor, but they don't have the guns and stuff like that. So the area that the Laventille area, it is strategically placed there to create the kind of environment they want.
I'm a Over Laventille kid, and as I tell people, I didn't even have the, if you consider it an honor, I didn't even have the honor being born in Port of Spain General Hospital. I was born at home. I was born literally in the house in Over Laventille.
Right.
In the heart of Mover. I'm a Mover kid. You have to ask a few yards from Monrepo, if you ever hear Monrepo.
Yeah.
You understand? So it was the heart of an immigrant community too.
Right.
Because I grew up among people who, whose parents migrated from Montserrat. I had Montserratan neighbors. I had Grenadian neighbors. I had Vincentian neighbors. That is why my godparents could have been from St. Vincent.
And you actually agree with them by association, or you become Grenadian, Margaret?
No, we're going to deport Margaret. Don't bother, we're going to deport Margaret.
but you understand what I'm saying, though? That's kind of like the mix-up Kalu environment that you came into. And that I grew in an environment where when you did something, it didn't matter, They was coming and complaining to your parents.
Right.
Yeah. And you know what he was getting. And that was true everywhere. Today, you think you could go and do that? One parent went and complained to somebody in Trinidad, and you know what? They went and shoot the parent who complained.
Wow.
But that is not the Trinidad that I was born. So, see, I knew a different Trinidad. So we need to ask, what were the conditions that existed then that prevented this mass bad behavior? And what has changed that now has caused this mass bad behavior? To think, I mean, Laventille had this reputation. I mean, if for you steel band, people who follow steel band and calypso know them days and them people fighting and whatnot and everything else. So it had its reputation. We're not saying it didn't, but it didn't have this kind of reputation.
Yeah.
And
just to add to what Margaret said, I remember on the last show, when I was here, we were talking about the Ukraine and the economic impact on the Caribbean, and raising the idea of where, we have a lot of economists in the Caribbean, and we have a lot of people in that field. What are we doing? What are they doing in order to come up with solutions? And even on this discussion here, I know we could spend all night talking about the problems and talking about how did we get here. But I don't think we spend enough time on looking at genuine solutions. And especially non-partisan solution. I mean, everybody believes their party is the best thing since sliced bread, and there's no problem with that. If Delbert is a gay right, he's backing ULP for this election, and his party and all these people around him is the best thing. Because I mean, that is dying true. No single party in the Caribbean have enough talent to solve the economic problem in their country. So, but that besides the point. What I like us to do, not just on this show, and let's talking in general, as Caribbean people, we don't spend enough time on looking for real, genuine, realistic solutions to problems. We spend a lot of time bitching and complaining and pointing out that the hospital is run down and the police isn't doing a good job and the school mash up on the road and all that kind of stuff, right? And all of that will be true to a certain extent. But I don't think, and it's easy for us to talk a lot, and especially when you have medium now where anybody could say anything and call in and stuff like that. But I just find we don't spend enough time looking for solution, and especially realistic, practical solution. Any man could come up and say, the Caribbean have enough talent and aerospace engineers, we could go to the moon. Oh yeah, we could go to the moon, but you need a spacecraft, you need a train, you need all that. So I'm talking about that solution about, yes, let me go to the moon, we might find new water resources in the moon. Yes, we could go to the moon, but it's not realistic right now. So as I said, I don't find we, as Caribbean people, so we talk about the Constitution, we try referendum, is not work. Is there another way we could get around this Constitution thing? Because whether we like it or not, is a hamstring around our neck, the Constitution. It prevents any government from doing a lot of things we need to do in the 21st century. We need to be more flexible. We need to be more flexible in providing services to our people. Or people are demanding more, right? More and better service. We can't do it. So just to make my final and repeat my point, I think we as a people in general, whether in the diaspora at home, we need to spend a little more time looking for practical solution to the problem we are facing.
All right. So I want to say something here. I have a document in my hand. I'm going to share with you, Delbert and Margaret after the show. All right.
But Toro, that point that Toro made this morning, we dealt with that with what's his name on the show this morning. That's exactly what he was talking about.
Hold on, I want to make the point because the obvious point here, Toro had that's not his first time Toro made a point. Toro made a point, I think on the first appearance on the show about the difference between the revolution and a parliamentary democracy. You don't have to contend with the parliamentary thing going to get things passed and environment and stuff. You want it done, you get it done. Yes? Under the experiment, we call it the experiment, and whatever they want done, they get it done. They have
people's law. We just passed people's law. People's law number 1, 25, 26, and we get things done.
Implement of the one opposition thing, and we get it. Airport, you know, imagine airport have been delayed by 5 years. We are still in Parliament. He said the environment impact and points. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, I get the point that you're trying to make, but I think we also don't want to go in the opposite extreme of having somebody being able to just do anything without a system of check and balance as well, because you could end up in that situation.
But Margaret, some of the countries a lot of people promote and talk about how they develop. They talk about Singapore and Cuba. Mm-hmm. How do you think they reach there?
Yeah.
By doing something, listen, the leaders decide, we are something like, yes, you want a thing? When we get this thing fixed, we will do all the nice things about democracy, everybody vote.
No.
So I'm saying, I'm agreeing with you, but I'm saying you need a certain period, just like with the pension thing, as the guys who are the rebel were saying, we needed to suspend the pension thing for a period of time to get the new pension thing. It's the same thing with, listen, Margaret, if we try to follow this path where every 4 years, people run around with it like chicken with the neck cut off voting, and then 2 years later, campaign start, and we do not, listen, our country isn't going nowhere. We could never develop.
Oh, no,
and when we have one another fighting
Right.
each other, chopping up one another, instead of thinking about development, our country isn't going nowhere fast. I'm telling you. Because what we have right now,
and I mean,
my last point. Here what we have now, right? We have a country with a small population. And as I said earlier, the talent is spread over, right? I'm telling you, I ain't guessing here. NMP win the election, you have a whole bunch of people who say, me, I ain't doing nothing until my party forms the government. So you lose a whole bunch of talent. NDC win, Mr. Mitchell, DQ Mitchell win tomorrow. There's a whole bunch of NMP people who are real talent. Don't say, me live in a straw until my party come back. How you want to build a country that way?
Exactly.
No, I agree. I mean, I don't disagree, but what I'm saying is though, you don't want, I think the thing is finding the sweet spot. It's finding the sweet spot between that, look, we're going to do it and we're going to do it. And sometimes having to check the person so that they don't go overboard.
Right.
So finding that sweet spot.
What happened during the PRG time? They had this national kind of a debate, and they have within the political bureau, they had discussions and stuff that people oppose certain things and stuff like that. All right. That's the way of democracy. Then they bring it to the people for a discussion and stuff like that. That was done. So the whole idea of parliamentary democracy thing, you don't really get much done, you know. And before you know it, there's a whole lot of corruption and all kinds of stuff like that. Look, in 1980, Fidel executed 4 generals involved in drug business, and they were doing it to say in the name of counterintelligence and stuff like that. And they tried them and said, no, I'm not giving America no excuse to come in here to arrest you. You know what I mean? They tried them and executed them. You know, so somewhere along the line, you have to take some harsh measures and do things and get things done. I think in the case of Grenada and the airport and other projects, they have to wait probably 6 years, you know, to get something done, because this whole idea of having to have political bantering between parties and different interest groups would have delayed a program during the PRG time. You know, at times you want to change something, you got to do something different. You can't operate on the same level.
But even in the US, with all this democracy, they have provisions to do some of the same thing the PRG is doing now. It's called the President's Executive Order.
Yes,
the President's Executive Order. Then realize that if everything has to go to Congress, a lot of things won't get done. So they say, okay, the founding fathers, so-called founding fathers, realize, listen, if everything has to go to Congress, the government will be paralyzed. So there has to be a kind of dictatorial execution of certain functions. So to give the president the thing to carry out executive orders. No government. Listen. A lot of people talk this thing about the one to consult and everything. If you have to build a box road, if you have to build a pit latrine, they tell the government, well, consult with us. I mean, how you could run a government so consulting and everything? I mean, that doesn't make no sense whatsoever.
I agree with you, but Tora, I agree, and this is what I'm saying: is finding that spot, is finding that spot between the two extremes. And as you rightly pointed out, the president has executive privilege. So there's nothing which says that you can design a constitution in such a manner as to grant similar privileges where that is absolutely necessary.
My thing is that I've always wondered out aloud, what's stopping somebody who gets elected prime minister and say, you know what, let's suspend this constitution because it's not working for us.
No, you'll be heading to the Privy Council. You'll be heading to the Privy Council.
But why should we?
Listen, and you saying that, and let's say you saying that and you are NDC. You saying that tonight, and Keith did what tomorrow, your friends call you and say, Delbert, let me organize a demonstration. Look, Keith is a dictator. Let me demonstrate. I'm telling you, Delbert. That's the reality of politics in our country.
Yes. I just happen to have a lot of problems with our constitution because here we have a document that was imposed upon us we can talk about whether or not people went to London to discuss and things.
Yeah.
The reality is that what we get was imposed upon us. All right. We never had the opportunity to vote on it. All right. No referendum, no nothing. But then in that document, it says if you have to change anything, you have to have a referendum, and you have to have not 50 plus 1, but 60, 66, 67%. I mean, that it's almost like they ensured that document is going to continue the underdevelopment of the country.
Oh yeah, it won't work. And even when the people vote in a referendum, you still have to bring it to Parliament to get 2/3 of the MPs in the House to vote on it. So if 2/3 of the people in the House say no, you have to go back again.
But same thing here. You need what you need, but you don't have to have a referendum here. But you need 2/3. What is it? 2/3 of the state? Yes, you have to get 2/3.
Man,
so that's not going to happen in the US for our lifetime.
No, never.
There'll be no further
amendment.
And there was a thing that I think when you looked at it, almost every, I can't remember, it was 17 or 22 years, there was an amendment to the US Constitution. This is the first time that it has gone almost coming up close to 50 years now, and no amendment. And it just sort of is a result of the massive divisiveness in the society. You know, you can't get anybody to agree on anything.
On anything.
Even though it's something that, I mean, you have Florida sinking underwater. I was in Miami sometime earlier on this year, and hadn't been there for a while, and you can literally see, Miami Beach, in the evening when the tides come in. That's not how I remember it from 10, 15 years ago. And you have 2 senators there and a governor denying the effects of climate change. Right, it's happening right before their eyes. Some communities already have had to relocate. They have to build embankment walls. They've had to put in new piping. They've had to do almost everything to save certain parts of South Beach. And you're saying it's not happening. I mean, today the normal temperature in Texas, I think not Houston, it is San Antonio, at this time in May is about 85, 86. Today was 105 in San Antonio. 105.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, even if we talk that Grenada is independent, right? And we talk about the constitution, how it affects economic development. But if the police or any government in Grenada decides to apply the constitution in its by the letter, we basically are a colony. I mean, you have laws like insulting language. So if I call Delbert Big Nose, Delbert go back police officer and say this guy called me Big Nose, arrest him, right? You have loitering laws, which basically are slave laws, where they want 2 or 3 black people gathered together. So the police walk in, is here, you tell it disperse, right? Those laws are still in the books. Right?
I was part of a conversation this week, a discussion with Osman Griffith, who was very knowledgeable.
I know him.
Very. I mean, we don't agree on everything politically, but I have tremendous respect for him. He does his research, he defends his point of view. And he had an interesting post this week where he talked about, he was very upset with what's happening with
the sidewalk vendor.
The vendors. And that law is on the books from generations ago. And it was meant to protect the big businessmen.
Exactly.
Now that, so while, he might be well-meaning in calling for some kind of order, but to go back and use some colonial laws to enforce them today would be really unfair to our people,
That's a key thing, in that a lot of these things were written to suit the particular era within which people were operating. And the problem is when you don't amend and when you don't do things like that to meet the changing needs, then you run into all kind of problems. For example, I mean, here we are, Toro and I here would know that libel and slander laws, for example, were written to meet a certain thing. They were dealing with print, newspaper, something you had in your hand, or something, when people outside there and they talk about you, whatever. Today you have the internet. That wasn't in nobody's mind when those laws were existing.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. I mean,
and it's a big question as to how you deal with this.
Yeah, I mean, even that the biggest issue in Grenada right now, apart from election that are eminent, is the pension issue, right? All of us agree that if people are owed the pension, they should be paid.
Correct.
But the reality of that pension law, it was a British imposed kind of stuff. So at the time when the senior civil servants were British, right? They came, they did the service, and when they were leaving, they collected the pension and the gratuity and they left. Whether the treasury had money after that or not, it wasn't their concern.
Exactly.
Now we are left with this here. The NDC and NMP had to find that thing. Listen, and in that thing, they didn't have to contribute to it. They just came from London, they did the job, they collected the pension and the gratuity, and they left. Treasury in Grenada, you guys find the money to do all you have to do. So again, we are saddled with these colonial laws and regulations and things, and we pay the price today. You understand?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
again,
you know, that pension thing is something that we have to deal with in a quite separate topic. But the reality is that more people today are benefiting from, whether you want to call it NIS pension or whatever, more people are benefiting today than would have under the old pension system. Because the old pension system only protected a very select few. If you worked in the parks, if you worked on the road, if you worked in a farm, if you do any other thing, there was no pension for you.
Exactly.
There was no pension.
That's correct. So there were a whole set of government workers that were
you had to be specifically appointed by the Public Service Commission and serve the extra, you know. So
there was the pension for senior public servants. There were housing. So for instance, a place like Tantin Terrace.
Yeah.
If you look at the houses that were there, but all senior civil servants, there was Tantin and there was Tantin Terrace. And Tantin Terrace were the home for senior public servants, called Strawn,
yes.
I'm telling you, I mean, it's a crazy system.
Yeah.
And we are saddled with that today. I mean, when you take away all the emotions and the politics from the thing, whichever government come, whichever politician is there that has this thing to deal with, we either deal with this head on, the constitution and fixing this thing, or we keep going over it.
Wasn't there one time a residence for the principal at GBSS too?
Oh yeah. The house right on the compound. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, and as Delbert says, that pension issue is something that you'd have to delve into in greater depth. But the reality is that the pension is not sustainable in the long term. And I think something that people need to realize. I mean, I understand, and I feel it's not that I'm trying to be harsh on people or whatever, but the reality is that when you're paying a pension, you're paying somebody for not producing anything. That's the harsh reality of that. And the fact is, you have retirement ages in the Caribbean that range between 55 and 60. You can't do that. I mean, I remember in St. Vincent, somebody was telling me in St. Vincent's 55. So imagine, that's still prime earning years, but at that point, you got to retire. So here's what. Let's assume that a government worker retires at 55, right? And lives until 95. That is 40 years that you're paying this person for doing nothing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that possibly contribute to the pension fund while in the working years, or 45 working years? Because the government do collect pension, I mean, for example, in Canada.
Well, no. But John, if you retire at 55, you didn't work for 45 years. Very unlikely.
No, you did not.
No, you didn't. But okay.
So you're literally being paid for more years than you actually work.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
if you died at 95.
You died at 95. So okay, you start at age 20, you work until 65. This is 45 working years, right?
Well, there's no 65. We don't have 65. We have 60.
We don't have 65. No.
Right? In Canada, I think you go up to 67 now in Canada, right? You gotta work 67 years.
Yeah.
In the US, if you were born after what, 60 or 61, it's 67.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we had a problem in Grenada after the invasion, right? A lot of the guys that were PRG workers, they retired a whole bunch of guys, and these guys were in the 40s and stuff, and they've been collecting pensions since then. I'm telling you, there are a whole bunch of guys. They don't trust them working. So they say, okay, we retired. So there are a whole bunch of young guys who collecting pension in addition to the other jobs they're doing because the interim U.S. government didn't want them around. So they retired those guys.
You know,
What's that?
I'm entitled to my pension too, right?
You what?
Am I entitled to my pension in Grenada right now too? I mean,
Yeah, well, I guess it all depends. Did you make your years? You know, and you know, there's another thing that I found that I noticed. A lot of people who go, and maybe that also affects the quality of the civil service as well, because a lot of people who go into public service, all they're thinking about is when I retire, I will get a pension.
Get a pension.
It's not about service. It's not about the word service. It's about my pension. So get a government job, work X number of years, and then get a pension.
Right.
That is the goal. It's not about service. Not about service at all.
And it's a non-contributory pension. The workers don't pay anything into it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
that is
but
great.
wait now, the judge who ruled on the case, right? Isn't he also affected by the pension?
No, I think he's paid out of the OECS coffers. Judges are appointed by the Legal and Service Commission, which is an OECS body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the government.
So I think it's a combined fund.
But that's.
But it's a combined fund. All the OECS government.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter there, but because inevitably that's. I mean, unless you take it out and you bring it to the United States.
He's not a Grenada judge. He's paid through the OECS because judges are appointed OECS wide by the Legal and Services Commission.
Yeah.
So, but you see, the thing is, he's a judge. He just rule legally, but he's concerned about the financial thing. That's for somebody else to work on. So I understand the judge ruling. I mean, as far as he's concerned, when you look at the law, the government
what the law says,
somebody else had to work with the mechanism for paying and how it's paid, you know.
Yeah.
So, I think he's just going by the rule of the law, you know.
I think B-Man made that clear on one of the shows there, but when the erosion took place and a judge was recalled from Grenada and they had to go because they don't want to lose their pension. Because the government wasn't paying the pension, it was paying from the fund that Lincoln about. So they didn't want to lose their pension, so they get out of Grenada as fast as they can. So one judge stayed, I think he was great, and I told you know what, I ain't going to, that's my homeland. I think it was cut something, I can't remember the judge name, he stayed in Grenada. You know, he said, to hell with that, I'm in Grenada, I'm not going anywhere. You know, it's only on the walk. So that's why, again, because you had to be suspended to put some things in place, you know, people's law. And again, how do you fix our constitution as it is? And the putting together of the referendum, tying other things in what people doesn't want in another column they want. So you vote for one, you vote for all. The referendum could happen, you know. But in my view, they have to separate the East and let them stand alone and vote for it. And once you put what they call the LGBTQ under the 5 years term into office and it's come under one thing, people don't want to vote for that. They want to vote for one thing. So I think you have to be very specific in your layout of your referendum and getting people to vote on it and the real issues for what they want to see in it. And so they could eliminate what they don't want and include what they want in it. I think that would be the solution to change our country.
Toro, I'm just thinking back about that whole question of having how this constitution sort of is a blanket, you know, an albatross around our neck, and how when you have another system, and Margaret correctly said, you have to have some checks and balances in place. But I remember, I forget the guy name, the guy who was Speaker of the Parliament when the revolution came in. Was it CPO?
No,
was it Coach Sean?
Coach Sean is a reason.
I think CPO had gone. No. Was it Coach Sean?
Coach Sean.
No, Coach Sean was head of the Secretariat.
No, it was Mr. Reason. Mr. Reason.
Wasn't no Reason. Might have been Reason.
Cabinet Secretary. Coach Sean was somewhere
anyway,
there.
I don't know why CPO name is Kevin, but anyway, he was an attorney, and he had a building going up on the lane, upper the lane, and we wanted
Squires. Was it Squires?
Squires.
Yes. Yes.
We wanted the building to establish what Jackie called as the House of Culture. It was deemed to be an ideal building overlooking the city kind of thing. So they gave me instructions to go and negotiate with him. Tight perimeters. And you have, $10,000-$15,000 to play with. That's the negotiating price. And I started talking to him. And his thing was he was willing to take the money at the time, but he says that he has to be allowed to leave Grenada with every cent. He's not paying no taxes. So I went back and I was dealing directly with Jackie, but I know she was consulting on it. And it came back like, okay, fine, he can leave, but if he leaves, he can never come back. So I don't So yeah, it's 2 pence guy from up in the country. I'm thinking, but here the funny thing about it, and I had to do that dirty work twice. But the funny thing about it, I'm going in there with full confidence. I'm this guy is 3-4 times my age, but I'm negotiating. I'm negotiating from a position of strength. And when I finally I held that, and then after we kind of almost signed, and I told him that, and he bucked, he said, no, he can't. And he started to quote laws for me that I didn't even know. And that happened with what's his name again, when what's his name went to South Africa. One who played cricket there, man, Shane Julian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was tasked to go and deliver him the bad news in his hotel. If you go there, you will be this persona non grata. You cannot come back to Grenada ever, and so I was like, wow, but yeah, we have to do something. I don't know. I think the efforts to change the constitution, of course it's a political document, it's a guiding political document, but you can have a sort of non-partisan political process to change it. And I think if we do that, it'll probably be helpful. But what has happened in the past really making it one political party against each other, we're never going to succeed that way. We never. And Toro, you're so right. I know good NDC people now who is going to do the bare minimum on their job, just doing the bare minimum because they're already there. And if things were to change, it would be all gung ho, and on the reverse, there would be some NNP saying, showing up like exactly what happened to me after the revolution. I used to show up in the ministry like 8:30 in the morning. A couple people see me for the couple months, and then I'm on Pandy Beach for the rest of the day. I show back up 1 o'clock in the evening. Somebody said I was in the ministry, and I'm gone again because I had nothing to do and I didn't feel invested in what was going on. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to just before we know it's almost 10 o'clock. We've been here for 2 hours, almost 2 hours already. In light of the present political climate, the climate in the BVI, I want to get from us a kind of consensus as to, and I'll go with Tero first, what we think should happen in the BVI as it comes to selecting a change in leadership, where as the British is concerned. Should they have gone to the people to choose a new leader, or should they just appoint somebody to run the affairs because it's the colony? Should they do that?
Right. As we said earlier, maybe whatever constitution they're operating under provides for the British to suspend the constitution and appoint a leader. But I think they have a new premier. What happened is the parliament in the BVI met, whatever they call themselves, the assembly or whatever. Mm-hmm. They met they passed a motion of no confidence in the premier who got arrested. And then the deputy was sworn in as the new premier. So the guy's out. So I think they're following whatever constitutional process. First, the British suspended. But I think even with the new premier, they are asking that the British hold off. And I don't think the British are suspending the constitution yet. Because I think I think the people there are asking, a lot of people, there have been demonstrations saying, listen, please do not suspend the Constitution. Please do not impose direct rule on the BVI. But in terms of the leadership, they have already passed a motion of no confidence in the guy who got arrested. And there's a new premier right now. So I guess that's the process, yeah.
So wouldn't that be helpful? I mean, the British foreign office is very skillful. They're known to be I mean, listen, at one point in time, they rule the world. So they know these people. Would it have been helpful for somebody in there to say, okay, let's consult with the OECS and see how we can do this in a better way, instead of this really high-handed approach? What appears to be a very high-handed.
But you see, for all the years of British colonialism and all that stuff, I think they have been so condescending to us that they're kind of hard-headed in terms of the way they do things. So, for instance, the royal visits to the Caribbean was a good example. And even some of the writers, commentators in Britain were saying that. They say you guys are tone deaf to what's happening, right? You have the British High Commissioner in the Eastern Caribbean. You guys don't have a feel for the ground. Whether they like it or not, there's been a movement away from the Queen head of state kind of stuff like that, right? And they were expecting to come to get the royal treatment that they were getting in the 1960s and stuff like that, right? And people are saying, you guys real out of touch. So what the point you're making, Delbert, in this modern era, 2022, right? The right thing to do was, we have an OECS, whether they like them or not, that they do some things right, do some things good, and they exist, right? Right? As you say, the right thing with any sensible, reasonable person in 2022 would have been, as you suggested, Delbert, but they've been so used to the old ways of just the heavy hammer in Grenada, in Guyana, in BVI, because that's the playbook they know. But you're right. The thing to do in 2022 was that even if the royals wanted to visit, the idea of the guy standing at open Land Rover, Prince William, like the Queen did in 1962, people just saying like, oh, they're standing behind a fence, shaking the black guys, the children hands between a fence. Those days are over. Even if doing a royal visit, modernize it, you know? But it's just stuck in the way. So you're right, Delbert. They could have done it that way, but they're just used to doing things one way, and they just continue plowing down the road. Just continue. Yeah.
And that same way. Margaret, what do you got?
You know, I think Toro said it all in that. I mean, he's nice by saying they're used to doing it one way. I'm not going to be nice at all and saying it's just their total contempt for us. And they're seeing themselves as being superior to anybody else. And I make no apologies for making that statement. And I say that too, because I know people who have worked with them, you know, in the Caribbean as well, you know, on various projects that they may fund from time to time. And they can tell you the kind of contempt with which these, I mean, it's just talking about it angers me. But they come with a certain attitude, you know, that they can just do whatever they want to do. And to hell with you because you are lesser mortal and they're up there and you're down there. They fail to realize that empire sunk a long time ago. The sun set on that a long time ago. Not yesterday, not in 2000, but a long time ago. So they need to get to the program. This isn't about, oh, well, they ain't understand. No. It's just their total arrogance. That's the whole thing. It's total British arrogance. That's what it is.
Unlike you, I want to travel to Britain. Unlike you, so I need.
I don't give a damn about that place. To be very honest with you.
No, Margaret. Listen, I don't know. I haven't maybe call it unhealthy or whatever relationship with London. I do like the place. It has a sense of history, and they keep records of everything, even the things that today would be viewed very negatively on them. They keep, a friend of mine one time they took me in to read some documents, and I was like, why these people have not gotten rid of this stuff? They keep records of everything. So it's a beautiful city. I mean, I was there late in December. I was not for very long. I enjoyed it, even if I got treated like shit at the airport, but comes with the territory. When I travel to these places, I expect to be treated like a second class citizen. I just make noise about it. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you look at the, I guess from the historical perspective, yeah, I suppose, if you like old architecture, which I kind of like, so
yes,
the buildings I'm
yeah.
interested.
Mm-hmm.
So I may be interested in the buildings, doesn't mean I'm interested in the people.
Yeah, it's one thing to read about 10 Downing Street and to actually drive by in front of it and sort of let the whole the history of British colonialism and its power for so many generations just sit on your shoulder for you. Just kind of imagine some of the decisions that were made there that affected our ancestors in such negative ways. And I do think about that every time I'm there. But you know what? I have three brothers who live in London. Two are very political, very anti-colonialist. The other one is, neither here nor there. And they love London. They wouldn't give it up for anything.
Yeah, I mean, and
I find that strange,
And here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. Since we seem to be in a bash in London, England mood. I mean, the food is awful. I mean, why would anybody want to go there?
The food is awful. No question about it. It has gotten a little better.
You know why it got better? Thanks to the Indians. Let's thank India and big up India for bringing some food and culture to England.
Yes, absolutely. Because I remember visiting London in the 1980s, and it was like I was eating wet cardboard.
Exactly.
Man. Oh God, yeah.
These people can't cook. You.
Yeah.
In which community? The Jamaican community?
Don't tell them that about haggis. So is it haggis or whatever they call it?
Whatever it is, I don't care. It's just that they can't cook.
Yeah.
But hey, we can have a little fun.
All right. Delbert, you're over on the BVI situation before we close out.
Listen, I'm troubled by these sort of big bold move in 2022 by these colonial powers to still hold on to whatever is left of the empire. I suspect that, believe me, the BVI is not really known for that, but the Cayman, which is a sort of tax-free zone where wealthy British overlords have been hiding their money, including Americans, for generations. That's probably one of the reasons why they're holding on to these places, because there is tax-free zones and tax havens, right? But to think that, at least they should know more about us now. We have studied at their universities. We understand them better. We have traveled extensively. We read. We listen to the news. We probably have friends who would have worked or served in British government. We have seen some of the depictions of their government. I'm going to admit I'm a big fan of this 1980s British comedy, Yes, Prime Minister, and Yes, Minister. I still, every now and again, look at old clips on YouTube. But it gives you a great insight into how that government functions.
The Prime Minister, the comedy?
Yes.
I love it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that comedy too. Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
I love it.
But if you see the arrogance in that show, you see the same arrogance being displayed by the current crop of officials, and it behooves me that in making that decision or putting that out there, not one person in that room did not say, "Hey, there's some regional organizations. We have high commissions here. I know this guy. I may have went to school with this guy. He's now in there. Let's reach out." Or whether that person said that and he was just sidelined, I don't know. But it is just very, very, very strange that they would sort of take that approach, that really high-handed approach, without aggressively consulting other Caribbean leaders or our organization? Is it that they already know that have dirt on some of our other leaders, so they don't have any confidence in them, or they feel that should they speak out, they would be able to muddy the waters around them? I don't know, but it is just very, very disheartening at this point in time that they take. And I hope that the people of BVI resist at all costs.
All right. The bigger question probably to ponder is, can they return to the Caribbean islands and suspend the constitution whenever they see fit and rule again from England? We take back your independence and give you the total British rule from Downing Street. Is that a possibility in the future if they so desire to do that?
That question is for Hudson.
I don't know what you were seeing with me. He dropped by and
let Hudson chime in.
That big question is for Hudson, man.
That one is above my pay grade.
Only Hudson could answer that question.
Yes, it could happen because based on a lot of Anglo-Saxon Grenadian, black Anglo-Saxon Grenadians.
Call him.
I don't want Facebook to ban me. Anglo-Saxon Grenadians, they don't accept Creole English. So the British could come back to say, well, 400 years, people like Hudson cannot speak proper English. I'm coming to teach him to speak proper English. That one, two, they could come back and say the Caribbean is infested with a gun culture. Because when we were growing up in the Caribbean, there was no gun culture. They could use that as an excuse to come back and say, remember, the American culture slips in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
The BVI is infested with guns. The crime is high. They could use that as an example to come back. And also, as for Grenada, I could speak for Grenada. I notice Grenada have a lot of people in the media who always complain about how the majority of people speak, while Jamaicans sell the Creole. Because I live in Toronto, and North Americans who think I'm Jamaican address me in Jamaican Creole. While in Grenada, we beating it. So the British, and remember, when we talk about sanctions, and you see Europe is sanctioning Russia. Russia could fight back with the oil and gas. Remember, Windward Island banana plus banana from Jamaica. So I would say it on a broader scale, Caribbean banana was sanctioned on the European market for the South American Chiquita banana. And the British didn't look after us.
Right.
So another thing again, we're using the British.
That was a deal between two big corporations, man.
The big corporation.
Yeah.
Another thing is that.
And your boyfriend Bill Clinton take $500,000 to sell us down the tube.
Right.
And the Democrats.
And it throws us under the bus.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of things that could come back against us with. For example, today, I don't know if you saw it on the news, the mayor of New York was chastising the prime minister of Jamaica for guns. But Jamaica do have a gun culture, yes, but Jamaicans don't make guns.
I think so.
Yeah.
So you see,
and we could talk about how that gun culture started there, going back to the 80s with the Manley administration, the CIA, and the introduction of gun culture to Jamaica. Okay, so if my mayor here wants a lesson in the history of the gun culture in Jamaica, we could always give him that lesson.
Yes.
Yeah, he definitely needs a lesson.
So they could be setting us up to come back to colonize us. We don't know. It could happen.
I think Tupac in one of his interviews said, you won't be surprised in one day you take back all the freedom one day and enslave us again.
Well, if they gave me
Well, you know, I
something-
used to say that. I used to say that all the time. Sometimes when I observe what's happening in the Caribbean, I used to say, you know what? It's only a matter of time before we will be re-enslaved. You know, it's sad to say, but it seems as though we're heading in that route.
History will repeat itself if we don't change. And it happened in the political landscape. I think somebody made a point last week that some of the young people today wasn't around during the revolutionary time, 1973 to 79. And the same kind of condition arising in Grenada again. And if we're not taught our history, it will repeat itself on us, and the new generation will think it's something new they're doing, but it's already been done. They're just repeating it because the same condition exists again for it to happen. You see? So history is not a straight line. It's a circle, and will come back if we're not careful.
Unmute, Toro, unmute.
Well, if you look at
the physical colonization, and I don't see that happening. I mean, it's not worth the while. Again, it's not worth the while. They're getting what they want using economic means right now. So what's the point in sending that? Don't make sense right now. So even when people talk about government doing stuff like that, I mean, you have a more conscious kind of population, the legal system. Back in those days, like in 1950s, they had about 2 or 3 lawyers and that kind of thing. Yes, we have a lot of weaknesses, but our civil society, there are some strong people. The whole civil society mechanism may not be strong. So a lot of things we kind of fear. I don't see them thing happening, honestly. Maybe I'm a little bit over optimistic. But Europe don't need to come physically and occupy. They could get what they want using economic means right now, so they don't have to come back in.
Yeah.
Understand that. Don't come physically, but the institutionalization of the system could be done by.
And they could use the African model. Look what they do in Africa. They pick up a leader here and there, and they do what they want. They could use the African model. Yeah.
Like Hudson just said, they don't need to do that. They have Anglo-Saxon blacks.
Exactly.
That will do the work.
The Anglo-Saxons are there already. Now remember, after remember changes that take place in the world, usually Europe, First World War, Second World War, the industrialized revolution started in Europe. Modern trading started in Vienna. Right? So whatever comes out from the Ukraine crisis, the world will go through a shift. Now, geopolitical. The British mightn't come back to Grenada the same way, or in the Caribbean the same way they came, but they could come back in a different form on the same mission.
To do, but Hudson, to do what? Listen, I keep telling people, we always talk about either China or somebody want Grenada or somebody. Listen, the reality is, what does Grenada have? Nobody. Hold on, let me finish. What does Grenada have that China, Russia, or the US can't find some other place, or they can't do without? There's nothing we have.
But Toro, I don't think it doesn't have to be something physical, but I think strategic location could make a difference.
Listen, what does China need Grenada to do? If they want to throw missile on the US, Cuba is closer. They could send a missile, right? What useful purpose will China have for Grenada? To do what? Listen, the French had earlier, they run. The British had earlier, they say we have nothing to do with you guys. The American had every square inch of Grenada covered. When they look at earlier, only begging, they decide to run. What will anybody want Grenada to do?
But Toro,
to do what?
Do you follow in what's going on in the Solomon Island presently?
That's not Grenada.
No, I'm just drawing a reference. Now, in Aceh and West Papua Guinea, Aceh, you had East Timor, West Timor, you had the Indonesian occupation after the Dutch left. Australia was right down there, and they didn't care. They didn't help the people in Aceh. They didn't help the people in East Timor. in West Papua, they didn't help them. The Indonesians still occupying. The Solomon Island Prime Minister make a deal with China, and Australia and Britain and America is telling the man, I will invade you. So the comment is geopolitical.
See, but you see that problem. They won't go to China and fight about China. They do a proxy war.
But they will occupy his country.
But I'll come back to Grenada. What will they do with Grenada?
They don't want Grenada because they want nutmeg. It's
nutmeg other places. Grenada is not the most nutmeg in the world. That's what I'm telling you. There's nothing we have that they can't find some other place. That's all I'm saying.
It's not the resources.
It's not. I'm agreeing with Hudson. Yeah, I'm agreeing with Hudson here, Toro. It's not about resources, because you're quite right. We don't have resources that they need. They could find those raw metals and whatever they are in Africa, right?
Yeah.
It's location.
Yeah. So don't
location
to do what?
Militarize.
To do what?
Proximity to here.
What military means I could use Grenada for?
So you could play draft? The game called draft.
Boy, that didn't make no sense, boy. I mean, we could look like it's in there, but I think it makes no sense in reality.
There is something in draft called you jam some knob and you pick some knob. So Caribbean people could come like when you pick a knob.
Barbados and Trinidad are better location, larger locations.
Lots of better locations in the Caribbean.
Exactly.
The Caribbean is a region.
Yeah, but again, Grenada has always been the island of what we call conflict. And a lot of the same people that we think now right now, they don't need Grenada. All of them fought over Grenada. Why were they fighting over Grenada? I mean, they brought stuff to Grenada. Grenada have all they wanted. They brought a lot of stuff in there. So what happened? Why they still want it? What is it that they want about it?
Who won Grenada?
What is it that they want to be part of, want to be in that location? What are they trying to do?
But who won Grenada now?
What? They still
want
to have. What? Listen to me.
No, who won Grenada?
But who have it? Who have it? You see?
I know some people say China.
China?
I don't know.
Okay. So let me give you a next analogy. You ever go and look for mango?
I know all the mango analogy and stuff. I still you answer me what the one Grenada to do. In the days when raw material was king, I could understand that. But what anybody want Grenada to do right now?
No, you could want it. For example, when mango is...
As a matter of fact, Hudson, I hope you know that, right? That some of the Europeans are creating the synthetic smell of nutmeg, and so it's kind of not valuable anymore if they creating the flavor and smell synthetically.
I think it's all about
they're creating it in a lab.
I wouldn't say they wouldn't come back. For example, you go on a mango tree to get mango. The first one you see, you didn't want it. The second one you didn't see, you didn't want it. When you're about to live under the mango tree, you eat the one where the Congori bite. You cut it out with your knife. So I would never say they wouldn't come back.
Do what?
But for
we
what?
Don't know.
For what?
This is nice, good from Chop Talk, but in reality, come back to the work.
So Grenada,
I would never say no.
Grenada is the Congori mango.
Yeah. They will come back one day again. I would never say no.
That's good to keep us. Good talk to keep us awake in the night. But
they're not coming back like that. They're coming back and buy the small islands off our coast, and tell us we can't visit them. They're going to
well, yes, they could come back that way.
They're going to strangle us to the IMF and the World Bank or the Inter-American Development Bank, like Torres said. They're going to use their economic levels to keep us at bay. And for those, like you said, the Black Anglo-Saxons, they're going to have them enforcing the rules. So
of course,
in terms of physical occupation, that's not necessary.
That ain't happening. I mean, if Grenada had real value, when America came in, they would have remained. They take two look at the place and they say, wait, time for us to get out. They hand only have about $10,000 and they left, you know.
No, they didn't need to remain.
That's the point.
They didn't need to remain because it was of no value.
Exactly.
You know,
It was
many years ago. What's his name? Both Sam Darlinson and the other guy used to be on NBC. I heard them publicly say that, you know, that the Reagan administration lied to the American people about what was actually happening in Grenada and that students were at risk and all that. He said, no, Sam Darlinson said no students were at risk. He said the safest people on the island were the students. You know, they were never...
But it's the same. What did Toro say earlier? Toro said earlier that you never go with the first story.
Yeah.
You always wait, and that's why you always wait until 3-4 weeks down the road, or sometimes months down the road, or sometimes years. Then you get the real story.
So, and you see that drug problem coming out of the Caribbean, which affects the Northern Caribbean probably a little bit more than in our own area. The great comedian George Carlin had a joke about it. He said, you know, Americans and Europeans are addicted to drugs. But they will be damned if some brown people make some money selling it to us. They'll go and try to you know, do whatever they want to get it themselves, you know, because they don't want no brown people making money on their
exactly.
But
it's like with the gun issue. It's like with the gun issue. I mean, Americans want the guns. The only problem they have with guns is the guns, as far as they're concerned, in the hands of the wrong people. So the NRA, they're against every gun legislation. They care how many people died. They just say, listen, leave us with our guns, just get the guns out of the hand of the black and the brown people. That's all.
Exactly.
But the Caribbean leaders did a poor job with this generation of youths, because the gun culture comes in the Caribbean. If you look at, now I'm a news junkie, I just watch news from the Virgin Islands. 90% of the people being arrested for drugs in the Virgin Islands have dreadlocks. But they're not, I wouldn't call them Rastafari, but they have dreadlocks. It's either they beat up their girlfriend or they hold them for drugs. Now, the first thing Caribbean government had to do, they should create a curriculum to teach this generation of black people history. Slavery ended in Ethiopia in 1942. Selassie had slaves. Selassie was enslaving black Ethiopians. When the Second World War ended, the British told Selassie, for me to put you back on the throne when he ran to England, you have to end slavery. These are something they should teach Caribbean kids. Because when you talk to a lot of young people, they don't know this history. They don't know. So what they had to do in the Caribbean was to teach Caribbean people slavery of our people was not only the European slave trade. You have to tell them slavery ended in the Caribbean in 1838, but slavery ended in Ethiopia in 1942.
Yeah.
You know, how many of our Caribbean young people know that? The other day I was telling some young black guys from Grenada that, and they tell me I make it up. I tell them go on.
Yeah, but they do the research, and that's the problem. A lot of times I have this kind of similar conversation, Hudson, with different people, and they're asking like, where have you been? Like, now this is not true. This is not true. But they have not done the research, you know. And then the school system not designed to teach you that. Because
but Hudson, that's true even for our own most recent history.
But I think things happen there, and Taro, the whole panel here, I think what is important for us to do though is within our own home system, the home in which we have, is to teach our children from there. You know, I say this to say my daughter had an experience in a school with a teacher who teaching religious study but not understand stuff in the Bible. And when my daughter pointed out something in the Bible to her, because when she told her about it, she didn't believe that it was in the Bible, so my daughter had to pull the Bible up on the scripture and give it to her. She said she never studied before. But how could you get a PhD in religious studies and you do not know that those things in the Bible? You know? So again, is what they teach them or taught them, they pass on. They never do the extra research for themselves to teach anybody else anything different than what they have been taught. And I think that's the whole problem with the system of education. We have to start educating our children to enhance them when they go to school. We can't wait for the school to educate our children for us. We have to start it to ourselves. So our history has to be taught in the home first. So when we go out there, we can talk about it and let them say, well, we know where we came from, we know who we are as a people. But if we're waiting for them, the same people who colonized to teach us the history, we're in serious trouble. And 2022, we got to change the narrative. We can't continue the narrative. We got to change that.
Listen, I'm almost certain that you go through our primary and probably secondary schools in Grenada now, and you ask them who is Eric Williams or Michael Manley or Barrows or Tom Adams or Bustamante or Bonham or Jagan, or they would have no clue who we're talking about.
Oh, then, yeah, but they know who is Tupac.
You see again, as I was saying earlier, that while we talk about independence and we still colonize in terms of
mindset,
the documents that control us. So we basically kept the same colonial education system, right? Yeah. Especially the way policies are implemented, right? So if let's say ICT and stuff is big thing now, right? For you to get that implemented in a school, you could go to GBSS or SARS or McDonald College. The principal by themselves may want to do it, but then I have to go through about 3 or 4 layers before they could, let's say, bring in Hudson to teach ICT or they'll go to do some kind of stuff, right? Even just, we have a lot of authors in Grenada now. Hudson, all of us, we are writing. To get these books into the school system, it's not like teachers are unwilling to do it. There's a whole procedure and policy and stuff they had to go through. Yeah. So again, we get independence, but most of everything, the way the colonial people set it up still remains. So we can't get anything done. We can't move forward.
Hold on.
And listen, and the point to make it is key, because even during the revolution, for those of us who went into some of these ministries and thought that we could sort of run rough shots over, it didn't happen. I remember being schooled by Ms. Dow. And then, because for some reason, well, not for some reason, I had met her years before the revolution organizing youth, because at that time she was chief youth development officer or something like that. And she had come to Chantemelle, and, you know, I had met her, she had met my parents, so she kind of, you know, she kind of knew me. So she pulled me aside and said, you know, I'm going to teach you how this thing works. It doesn't work the way. You know, and they could just frustrate the hell out of you.
but it didn't have to, though, because I tell you something, you know, I hear what you're saying, Arturo, but I mean, hear me, Toro, but you know, even so, people like Margaret Dow and they still got things done. Even if and you know, they got it because I remember when I started to work in GIS as well, you know, how it was done really was not the way it was supposed to be done. And I remember there was Miss Phillip upstairs. She called me one day. She said, you know, these people always do things the wrong way. I need you to bring in the paperwork. So and I literally had to go home and bring in all my school certificates and stuff. And then she took the paperwork, she processed it, sent it down to PSC and all of that stuff. You know, and it went through it. Honestly, it didn't take long, but you know, it had like, it was those older heads though. They knew how to take it and they got it done. You know, like Mr. Cornwall, like when you went away and you took government funds, for example, you had to come back and report on those funds. You couldn't just use the funds like that, and they knew how it went. So I would say that
was funny for me. I was traveling for about a year and a half before I knew I was entitled to some kind of compensation. And I just returned from a trip and went in to say hi to Miss Dow, because, by the way, she was excellent to me. That lady was just really, for some reason, she took me under her wings, and, you know, so I have all the praise for her. And she said, by the way, I never saw you submit any vouchers for your travel. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said, well, you better go back and get all your stuff, get everything you can. And I had this huge pain because, you know, it was in the Caribbean. I forget how much you were getting, like 100 EC. But when you travel outside of the Caribbean, you got 100 US.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what a lot of money those days.
Yes.
Exactly.
Of course,
Exactly.
You know? So we didn't know anything about that, but we claim we're running government.
Yeah. But so, you know, and I think, and that's the thing, you know, and I think people like you and I, even if, you know, we sit down and we pick, it doesn't mean that everything was right. And we could sit down and pick at a lot of things. But I think we had the benefit of those older heads, the Pam Steeles, the Marcella Davids, Aki's mom, you know,
Miss Rapier.
Philip,
Rapier was
Gloria
another
Banfield,
one.
you know.
But I don't know.
But you see, I think part of the weakness of that system is that the knowledge is in the heads of these people. It's not institutionalized. There's no orientation session, right?
Yeah.
And a lot depends on the person itself rather than the institution. So Ms. Doe is good and Ms. Pamela Steele is good, right? So they get things done, right? And it's not taught. It's not. So and the other thing is, while the system is good, I believe we're in 2022 right now. And part of the problem I see is the public service in particular has to become a little more nimble and a little more responsive to the general public. Agree. Because the way the system is set up is the senior public service, there's a barrier between the ordinary folk. When you come there, it starts with the way you dress, the way you address them, the way you address them as a person. And it's just a little too inflexible for the modern time because people want service a little more quickly now. And the service is just, I mean, I agree with you that you need certain checks and balances, as you said, Margaret. But I think where the system falls down, as I said, it's not there's no orientation and it's too inflexible.
No. I agree with you 100%. I mean, I agree. I mean, we're talking about 1979.
Right.
1979 to 83. You know, so it was a different, you know, there's a different mindset with us. There was also a different mindset with that group of workers compared to the workers that are there today. And certainly, that whole system and stuff, I mean, what worked in 1979 to 83 and even before that certainly would not work today. I think there are a lot of areas within the system that can be cut, but nobody is going to cut it because guess what? That's a political hot potato you're talking about. They're not going to do it. So, I mean, one of the things that always frustrates me, for example, when you go to clear a barrel, depending on who you send it with. Now, if you're in New York City and you ship with Compass, well, you're kind of like lucky because you just go straight into their thing. Is a one-stop joint. Everything gets done.
Yeah, but he's going to rip you off anyway.
Yeah, but you know, that's beside the point. Is you still get it done one stop, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you choose to go through the ports, if you ship with somewhere else where you got to go to the port, you cannot go to one place and make all the payments, which is stupid.
Absolutely.
Right? It's going into one government coffer. Right? Why can't I pay my stamp duty, if Toro has to get 5 cents, Delbert has to get 10 cents, John has to get 25. You all part of the same government. I should be able to make that one payment there and everybody gets their cut from that one payment. Does that happen? No. So Toro lives in Canada. I have to get to Canada, pay Toro, where Toro is. If Toro is in Toronto and John is in Winnipeg, then I had to trek over to Winnipeg and pay John, and then come back to New York and pay Delbert, and then find Hudson wherever he is in Ohio and pay he before I can.
It's a whole day. It's a whole day.
Absolutely.
Walk out
and don't walk in on any one of these officials in those days at 11:45 or
lunch. I remember going to one. It was about 11:45, and when I knocked the door, and when the woman watched me, she said, "I know her birthday, but I could hear. What are you doing here? Just so you know." She said, "What?"
And that was something I was saying. That's another change that can be made: a staggered lunch period. Because the reality is you can't have everybody going out to lunch at 11:45. Because there are people who are non-government workers who may need to get something done, but they have to do it to their lunch hour and they can't do it. stagger the lunch hour.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also, there should be a way of doing things online. Yeah. If you know that the barrel is whatever is coming and is in a notification in your email that this barrel is here, right? So then that is the fee that have to be paid and such and such. So you make all your payments to that ministry or that department, and it goes right, and you go pick and then you get a receipt. You print it out and you walk on it to the port authorities, all business paid.
Exactly.
But I think to do that, somebody might have to table something in Parliament because if it's not part of the existing book, whatever thing,
right.
No PS can do it. Yeah.
It comes back to the point you were making, Toro, right? Where that is when powers like those you give the executive power.
Right.
So you just
exactly.
Again, much a red team, and it puts us sitting in Parliament to pass those legal things, and it just should be executive order, let it done. And
and some of these things are just such easy fixes. I mean, it's not nothing that you have to, reinvent the wheel or craft a whole thing. It's just an easy fix.
Not surprising.
It goes back to when these laws and them were passed. They were passed to frustrate and to ensure that the poor did not get the service that because if they came in there and they weren't dressed appropriately, they didn't speak appropriately, they didn't address you or saw madam, you ain't getting no service.
Yeah.
And the
culture, you get no service.
The culture stayed with people. The public service in Grenada could be cut by half and be as effective.
Yeah. Definitely.
So I went to Grenada in 2019. Yeah, 2018. And I watched somebody come into the station and make a report. And the guy got on he opened up a big book. And I'm thinking like, no computer. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have a little operation here. Yes? And I could turn that into everybody in my house could have an email address system, and wherever they are, they could access the computer to do this stuff. To go and see what John, email from John, a network. To go one bit. There's a company I work for that have 11 stores, and one office have the system where everybody could access the system for that particular thing. Now, if I commit a crime in St. George's, right away, that enters into the system. People in Gemfm, you get everything in Gemfm, that should be pulled up right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is 2022. The police should be equipped with stuff too when they pull when they license plate. If they don't have it, ask for the help. Ask for the help to aid you in that area.
But you see, but John, that goes back again to legislation. So, for instance, right? You have all these things. For instance, one of the biggest wastes in the government is the printing of the government gazette, right?
Yes.
The government gazette was a thing that was in place when things were official documents, legislation, the governor general signed stuff. You only had about 10 people reading it. Whoever was the governor, who was the chief minister, a few lawyers in Grenada. But if somebody gets an appointment to a government statutory body or is swearing at Parliament or the Governor General, he has to go in the Gazette. And I remember once I was sitting on a committee when we were doing trying to develop a media policy. And the Attorney General was saying, watch, once we do this thing, we had to gazette it. And I was like, what? I said, nobody reads the Gazette, right? So, but part of the running the government, things must be gazetted. You always say gazetted. But nobody reads the Gazette, except for about 10 people in Grenada. But is
it because, but Toro, are they not reading it because it's not, is it, they just don't want to read it or because it's not available?
Well, there are several things with it. One, the Gazette was never a document for the general public. Few Grenadians know what the Gazette is. I've never seen it. I never saw the Gazette until I started working in GIS, right? Second thing is the Gazette is very dull. It's still like, the NGM used to do the newspaper. That's the way the Gazette is printed.
Yeah.
It's still printed. Stenciled kind of stuff like. So it's very dull. The third thing is you have to subscribe to the Gazette. You don't get it free. Yeah. So there's a whole, but it's still all government legislation, everything has to go in the Gazette. And there are about 100
And you realize that the point that you guys made that in reference to this, that it was done to prevent the poor.
Exactly.
Keeping it that way still prevents the masses from access to whatever government is doing and has done.
So when you see a lot of people on Facebook arguing about certain things, those things were gazetted and were passed and the thing, and they say, well, when was Hudson George appointed to this committee? And they say, yeah, he was appointed. You didn't read the Gazette of March 2022, but nobody reads the Gazette.
And it goes back, yes, but you see how we're making this circular motion all the time, because it goes back to the lack of civics in school, so people don't understand that government prints a gazette in which the government documents what it does and
everything. Anything you want to know about government.
So everything is just linked to one another. You see one break in the chain in one place and it just weakens the whole system.
But the gazette was created for the proprietor and the large landowner, because before 1951, if you didn't have glass window in your house, you couldn't vote. So the planter, who were mostly, perhaps they went to school in England.
Listen.
No,
repeat
that. What the ones reading.
No, repeat what you just said.
Huh?
Repeat what you just said before 1951 about the land. If you don't have,
there was something called adult suffrage.
Yes.
So before that, if you didn't have glass window in your house and a couple acres of land, you couldn't vote.
Okay.
So who are reading the Gazette? Were the proprietors and the large landowners. Ordinary people were not part of the
equation.
That hasn't changed today. So what you guys saying is true.
So going forward, then what need to be done is, even within the construct of the new geopolitical economic problem that we're having right now, all of these things, even though they have been gazetted, now the public it should be free and accessible online through the government website for free.
Listen.
I would also add to that too, right? And Toro, but I would also add to that. This is where Government Information Service also comes in, because what could be done is have somebody. How often does the Gazette come out? If the Gazette comes out every week, then you should have a GIS staffer assigned to covering the Gazette. So the person may not deal with every single thing, but they could probably do Gazette highlights. You know what I mean? So whatever is the main story or main stories in the government Gazette that the public needs to know, they could highlight it there, because people see the GIS reports. You know? So that's another way of making people aware of what's happening. And again, you know, Toro, it goes, and even the regular journalists, they should be reading the Gazette.
Journalism is a separate topic for another night.
I will leave it there, yes.
Because I mean, even the GIS is not, as the GIS I know, is not properly staffed to do that kind of work.
But it's not like our GIS, right? And
exactly, not like our GIS.
Yeah. And even Torah and them used to laugh at us. You know. But that is another talk.
It's another topic.
The staff at the Butler House, and those are the West Indian newspaper.
Right.
The two.
Oh yes. Let me tell you something. You can always know when you hear Torah and them struggling for news, then they want GIS releases. When you hear they have no news, when you hear the Florida news, oh boy, they're tossing everything down in the arm.
Margaret, there was a person we didn't like to deal with at all. She always had a vexed face. The great girl, I can't remember her.
Oh, Priscilla.
Yeah, boy. She always had a vexed face.
reason why I raised that, I remember in Butler House, somebody came to Morris. I was standing right there and I was complaining about the sharing of information between the newspaper and the staff at Butler House, not giving them information to dispense on time. You know, so that the news that we want to bring out, again, the people in time, that they withholding information from the, and we are working for the same government. Why they not just send us the information? Why they don't beg for the information? They should be sending out, and it's okay, I'll look into it. You know, it was a problem. People just want to have some people want to have the edge to have it first. And if they come from them, you know, it's not right. We have to send it out. So the people also want to make sure that they have the upper hand on the news. You know, they want to release it to RFG first before you get anywhere, you know?
But see, I mean, we're all young, and the revolution was trying to run a 100-yard dash in 2.3 seconds. We just didn't have the infrastructure in place to do all the things that people wanted us to do, to get the news from GIS to RFG to Free West Indian. And we were ambitious, but we just didn't have the infrastructure.
I think now, looking back now on everything, I think that we were so, like you said, the word ambitious was the word. We saw things and we wanted to get it done, and we were going for it. You know, we just, okay, blinders on. This is what to get done. Let's do it. You know, we get it done. Yes, by hook or crook, it was done. And looking at a study, not really a study, but the plan proposal for the PRG recently, and what they have done, what they was planning to do, and how it will be done. If this government get a hold of this thing and they implement them now with the technology they have, Grenada should be like, and the plan wasn't just only for Grenada, it was a model, it was said, for the rest of Eastern Caribbean. You understand me? So if that
I remember taking my first voucher to get some plywood to make some basketball backboards. And I took it. Then we used to have some place in finance called the computer room to find out what's left in your budget for that month. And there was one computer in there, and it repeatedly went down. It just wouldn't go down. So you had to somehow make sure you keep your figures, that you know what, if it's 10,000 you had, so whatever you spent. But the first time I took it, I actually took it then. The lady in the computer room told me, no, this is not done this way. You have to put this in an envelope and it gets sent over officially. You can't just walk in here with this thing and expect me to think this. I have to put what time the envelope was, you know, because I don't know what happened, and it ended up, I don't know if she was transferred or she retired, because it was a pretty senior lady. And then this young girl that I knew, I'd gone to St. Rose at the time. I was at Shaper and we were friendly, ended up in that job. And that made my life so much easier, because, you know, I can just walk in, you know, do a little wink eye. She know we went to school together. We were friends. She's going to take care of me over maybe somebody coming from agriculture or somebody. So, you know, there's ways to work around the system. But if you don't have an ally, man, they will stymie you. They will stymie you and frustrate you.
The one thing I must say about the system under the PRG too is that those guys were tough and they were demanding, but they also took a lot of chance on young workers. All of us were young. And they would put us in senior positions to do certain things, you know. And they took that chance on us. And we said, you know, like, I know for myself, I said, well, we can't let them down, you know. We had to show we bullshit.
I think too, you know, in addition to that too, I think there was also a belief, you know, you believe that you were building something you were doing something for the greater good. And I'm not sure that a lot of people today believe in the greater good.
That.
You know, because and it wasn't simply PRG and Grenada then too. I think it was also that time in history, because it was at that time you had a lot of young nations coming into play as well. Right. So you had this whole concept of development, and that anything you were doing was really for development at that stage in history. Certainly it's not necessarily the same thing today. You don't see that kind of commitment. People are not there because they're there for the greater good. Right. You know, because the hours that we worked, as you know, I mean, there were many times you know, we went into work in GIS, as you know, Toro. I mean, in GIS, you're covering government ministers. Sometimes they have events late into the night. We're leaving the country, coming back down to town after 12. You're just leaving. And you don't even bother you. You get into GIS, because you want to get the story out and get it onto Kana before you know what you go home. You know, I can't see people doing that today without complaining.
No.
Well, I guess
you said that, Margaret. I remember we covered an assignment in RFG, right? We went and do the assignment, and because we wanted to get the news was 7 o'clock. It used to pick us at 5 to get there for 6. The news is 7, so we would come straight from the assignment, whether it's in Soteas or Grenville, and go to the radio station and sleep. Exactly. So we could be there to do the news for 7 o'clock in the morning. We slept at the radio station, right? The other thing, though, I believe also is that the other thing I believe is that, again, it's a cultural thing, we are visual people, right? And we could relate to things we could feel, see, and touch, right? And I'm telling you this straight, a lot of political parties make that mistake in the Caribbean. They have a good platform, but they're not visible in terms of touching. I know my uncle, for example, was a big area, right? Boy, used to cuss us, all the little boys with guns, all kind of thing, right? And by 1983, he was working in the hospital. By 1983, I remember Porgy and a host of the soldiers say that man, when they left the fort, that man gave them civilian uniform to put on, hide them, right? That was a man who hated the revolution at the beginning, right? But by 1983, he and other Benedians could have seen something happening. The airport was building, right? So they could have seen things happening. The free milk program, maternity leave, right? So even those who were skeptical, who were against Bishop, who were against us little boys walking around with guns, they could have seen things. We could say what we want. Again, so for example, there are politicians in Grenada, people say, well, how this person winning so? Because you know why? People could see them, people could touch them, people could relate to them, right? We are visual people, right? So while we were working hard, Margaret, a lot of people, they were seeing things happening. Some of them didn't just say, well, we're building an airport. They saw the mountains were coming down in Port Saint.
Exactly.
Tractors were going on. So they were believing, not just in a theoretical way, but they were seeing.
Yes.
So I think all that
and so that was duplicated in many small villages. I remember this gentleman who was a diehard Gary guy in leading up to the revolution. Always nice, but diehard Gary. And the first big project after the revolution came up in St. Patrick's. I think it was the refurbishment of about 3 schools. And he had always been assured he's going to get one of these contracts. And he didn't get the contract. He was not lead, but he was hired because everybody knew he was skillful. And I remember when the guy who was leading the work in St. Patrick's told him that, he said, really, you guys going to let me work? You know, you guys really going to let me work? I'm not, I'm not going to be blacklisted. And we said, well, why would we blacklist you? We know you. Yeah, you don't talk a lot of shit on the block. We know you, Gary, but we know when it comes to doing your work, you know what you're doing. And he could not believe it, And within 6 months, that man was gung-ho about the revolution. And from that became a progressive. He unfortunately died about a year ago. But I used to go to Grenada and sit down with him, and he would recoil on stories of the revolution. And Gary, I mean, it just, that whole thing about, when these older folks die, you lose the library. This man had first-hand knowledge of so many things, and no exaggeration.
Absolutely.
So if you deal with people honestly, and you let them know you are about genuine development, and it's not us against them. And they're gonna come on board because
and show them a roadmap. Show them a roadmap. Don't give ordinary people a puzzle and tell them this is happening over here and this will happen. Show them a roadmap.
His son went
and I think to Delbert's story about that guy, I think that is somewhere that we need to move to. That regardless of what a person's political persuasion is, if the person is skilled at a particular task, you need to put the person in the task.
Absolutely.
Because what you want is the best person for the job. Right? And we need that is a space that we need to move into. So it shouldn't be, well, I'm an NMP now, so I ain't hiring NDC, or I'm an NDC and I ain't hiring NMP, or I'm a Garyite and I'm not hiring this one. I want the best person for the job. I think people can be mature enough. I mean, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that they can be mature enough to function professionally if they're true professionals, regardless of what their political support is.
And Margaret, just to add to that, I think a lot of that work has to be done by the cadres, the supporters of the parties, because to tell you the truth, a lot of the divisions that we see today are pushed a lot by supporters of the various parties.
Of course.
Reinforcing a message, especially on social media and things. Honestly, I don't hear the leaders, the party people themselves inside preaching, even though I might say no one again, but every day you're bombarded, especially if you're on social media, supporters of the various parties, chopping down Delbert, chopping down Hudson, chopping down Margaret, chopping down Toro. And it's just sinking, and it's in the community. So I think change has to come at that level. During the revolution, the comrades, the younger comrades like us, we were disciplined, we were following the party line. When we go to talk to people, telling them the benefits of the revolution. But not today. When the man got, he's an NDC, and NDC line straight. If
it's about running down.
An MP man,
But you know, I told that's a good point. But the point I was saying this to somebody the other day, that message has to come from the leaders.
Yes.
And the example that I was talking to somebody and I was saying, look at what John McCain did when he and Barack Obama were running. Yeah. Now, regardless of whatever, but when the guy said what he did, McCain could have left it there and just go on. But as the leader, he made it clear that this is not what we are about. So yes, we know that supporters will do. You cannot control what a supporter say and does, but you can set the tone for how that supporter behaves. Yeah. So if as a leader, you speak to your supporters and say, look, we're not going to do this. We're not going down that path. And when you see somebody do something, you address it straight up and say, no, this is not what we are about. You're actually setting the tone. Right. But when you say nothing, it let them believe that they can continue with that.
I agree. Yeah, very much so.
Also about something. Hold on there, but Hudson, you was going to say something earlier,
based on in the PRG time, there was what you call that period had an energy, and a youthfulness. So with an idea or ideology. So it was a young group of people, and there was a common thing, common cause. So they worked together. What is going on now is different. That energy is not there. But as Margaret and Toro and Delbert say, there are people involved in the two main political parties who perhaps don't need a job. They don't want a job. So politics for them become religious. I like that party and I don't like that party. And they transcend that into a wider sector of both political parties. So to get, as Margaret said, if somebody could do the job, give them the job. Yes, but there are people who religiously NDC, and there are people who are religiously NNP.
Right. And
they are the spoiler.
It's usually the same 12 people on each side making all the noise.
Yes.
Religious. It's the whole village, the whole parish, so it's the same 10 or 12 people,
If you ask them why you don't like the other party, well, I don't like that guy, or I don't like the leader, or doesn't like that guy.
Not our policy. It's just the person.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. And and something I find very, very, I want to use probably stupid, maybe a strong word, right? Delbert might make a statement on Facebook about the NDC, and he has put an NDC, right? And he may make a statement, just a statement of constructive criticism. Sometimes, so they could take it and say, let me fix that because somebody sees a weakness. And then, somebody, there's a special woman on Facebook. You can't say,
Call him.
Yes.
Don't call him.
Oh, no. Well, no, we could call them because the person posting publicly,
Because today, with the Calvini thing, somebody report me to Facebook.
Hold on.
Conversation.
With the Calvini destruction,
they
say I go against the page.
Hold on, Hudson. The point I'm trying to make here is this. The detriment to the NDC or to the NMP, and if I happen more to the NDC supporters, I see that a lot, right? I mean, there's a lot of people on both sides, but it's more pronounced with certain people in the NDC camp that make that kind of a war zone by somebody else saying something that need to be changed. I mean, you can't go and call people stupid and for you. You can't go and want to do you can't go and call and you want to vote for you. Right now, I'm saying to Yeah, I said before to a couple of people that you had 22,000 people that did not vote in the last election. Okay? You had a disruption within NDC, right? Where you have the emergence of the TGM that come in and grab a set of people that go nowhere. That train was just running on fumes. It didn't go nowhere. The leader was miles away from the action on the ground. Eventually, the train with no leadership ended up crashing. Yes? And so you have a set of people that need to be reached, the 22,000 plus those who drop off the train before you know what I mean? And then you have to get into the NNP camp and attract the young people and give us an alternative than what they're accustomed to. So the messaging must not just be Deacon as the new leader, but something beyond that. We know he's the leader now already. We need to give the people another reason beyond that.
Listen, John, this problem is endemic in NDC. I have a friend from my village who is a professor of economics at Mona. Went to Cuba and then came back, got a scholarship to the Commonwealth, ended up in London doing a PhD at, I think, Southampton University. She has a family, a big family in the village and surrounding village. I would easily say she has about 25 to 30 people in that family who votes regularly. All right? She can get them to move Chantemelle from Chantemelle and put it on the wharf in St. George's. Right? Anything she asks, because they respect her like that.
If she could do that, she's good.
She's the first person to graduate high school in the family, first person to go on to university, did well, now big time professor and everything, right? Anything she asks of that family, anybody in the family, she calls, they get it done. She cannot get not one member in that family to vote for NDC. Not one. Grandma rules with an iron fist. And for the simple reason, because years after years after years, NDC operatives have called these people stupid, have called them greedy, have called them dependent, have called them all kind of names. And this is a first-hand story because we speak all the time, we talk all the time. And you know, the last election, she sent me to her house to speak to Grandma to see what I can do. I made absolutely no headway. Grandma sat down there. She made some lime juice for me. She said, "Neighbor boy, you know, eat some pig and saltfish with me." She gave me some lime juice. I realized, let me enjoy that pig and saltfish and drink my lime juice because I ain't changing Grandma's mind. And if I can't change Grandma's mind, I ain't changing nobody else's mind. You know, but it's a real problem for us moving forward. And it happens to me all the time. If I just offer any kind of criticism, I tell them I'm not a party operative, you know.
Well, I think it's a mentality because today, where the Calvini thing came up today, all I said was the land was not owned, Calvini land was owned by mills. It was not state property. So you cannot blame the government for buying the property. And they report me to Facebook for saying that.
Yeah, but
when I was on the thing, Facebook tell me I go against the
standards.
Yeah, because one of them report me for saying no, it's not the government. The government had nothing to do with the sale of Calvini Island, was private property.
And but it was private property, but the government have to sanction that sale one way or the other.
No. The government have power to say, okay, I could acquire it, you cannot sell.
Government could say the land cannot be sold for any number of reasons.
Yes, but next thing again, most of them have the belief that if you own land on any of the islands what we have outside, they don't believe the island property belongs to the state of Grenada. So they report me for that.
So Hudson, who you are voting for? Hudson, who you are voting for?
Let me tell you something. My position on what is going on presently, when I look at it, both political parties have the weakness and the strength. Like the other day I was saying, the problem with the pension plan, when we go back to it, we cannot only blame the NNP, even though they win for more time than the NDC. Both of them had a chance to repair it. So both parties cannot make it a political mileage. Because if you look at, I like to deal with the history of it. After the interim, then we had the first NNP. The first NNP, Blaise died. Then the NDC came. So they had a chance too.
Right.
You understand?
Yeah,
So
but
the NNP had...
Hold on.
I got to challenge you on one thing. What is the NDC strength? And the NNP strength is winning election.
Yeah,
no, not the election I'm talking about. I'm talking about
You said both of them had their strengths and weaknesses. So I want you to tell me what are the strengths of the NDC.
The strength of the NDC? The NDC have
It's not a thing about the question, you know.
No. What is killing the NDC? No. What is killing the NDC?
No, you asked about the strength. You didn't ask about killing them. You asked about the strength.
The strength of the NDC? Yeah. they have a strong core following.
All parties are that.
Yeah, but they don't know how to get this.
But that's not the strength.
No, the strength they have, they remain a viable political party, but they lack that extra push to get the swing vote. That's the weakness.
After losing 3 times 15, how could they be viewed as viable?
No. You don't tell you. They have a core following, but they doesn't have the strategy.
We're still struggling with that one there, but
how to get the swing vote.
With that one.
And that is where the problem is, getting the swing vote. And to get the swing vote, as Delbert mentioned, where in Shandimel some people feel sour. Language, political language used could hurt ordinary people. And some of the NDC people still using the language, and it's still hurting the party.
Yeah, maybe.
But still, we have to say the two main political parties, NNP and NDC.
Yeah.
Until perhaps a third one. Because they have a co-follower. How to get the swing vote?
For example, you're never going to have 3 strong political or main.
Well, no, what is going to happen?
What is going to happen? One have to die.
No, it could happen like in Dominica with Edison James. I just follow Caribbean politics. Edison James was able to defeat Miss Eugenia Charles as a third party. I don't know if
but the Freedom Party died. There's no more Dominica Freedom Party. That
but Edison killed it.
But that what Delbert is saying. It's only 2 viable parties you could have. You can't have a third party.
That is what I'm saying. The future is perhaps a third party.
Well, there will only be 2 because if one die, you end up with 2 still.
No.
That's what we're saying.
A third party is going to kill one party.
Right. So you end up with 2.
That is what I'm saying. Like how Edison James came with a political party.
So why you and John and Delbert in form a party?
No, it's the young people to do that. I think it's young people. Not our generation.
I think the problem, I think one of the thing that I said before, that if the people who joined NDC from the NJM background, if they have keep the cool and waited instead of getting into the NDC, by now there'll be a third party that will replace that become that second party instead. But they jumped the gun too fast. And I still maintain that I still have the document in my possession. If they had waited for the right timing, they would have been the go-to party today. But instead, they jumped the gun too quickly.
You know the first thing killed the NDC when they win the first election? 1991. I went to Grenada for Christmas. I born in the Nutmeg area. My father was still alive.
No,
there was a lot of nutmeg.
NDC has won one election.
No, the first election they won.
They formed the government twice, but they win one election.
Yeah, the first election, the mistake they make.
They didn't win. What I'm saying is they didn't win the election.
That was a coalition.
When Edson Thomas crossed the floor, they formed the government.
Okay.
They didn't win it.
When they formed the government, the first mistake they make was 1991. My father was still alive. When I go down, he tell me, well, look, he vote NDC, and he tell me, no, he won't vote for them. The NDC, there is a lot of nutmeg, but that year didn't have sale. The GCNA approached the NDC and they tell them, secure $4 million for us to give the farmers a back pay. And when the nutmeg sell, we will pay back. And they didn't do it. That was the first mistake the NDC make. And then from that time,
that was it.
My father never forgave them.
Yeah, back pay was a big thing in those.
And the next year, all the nutmeg sold. So all they had was to do was give the farmer the money.
I think Mr. Michael Bad will take a credit for that, because under his leadership with Brian Campbell at the wheel of the association, I think they made something like $50 million in profit or something. So that year, that was the biggest in a long time. And people were able to get it back. I think Mr. Baptiste was on the show with Brian Campbell here on the Talking Point a couple years ago, and they made that point that it comes to management. But I think now the world situation have changed. I don't know if Grenada could really get themselves back into that status as supplying the world with nutmeg as before. So
we have lost both in nutmeg and cocoa.
Oh yeah, nutmeg is almost back already.
Yeah,
in the next 6-7 years, if we don't get a hurricane, Grenada having the same nutmeg among the nutmeg. And from Hermitage, I can tell you. Delbert will tell you the same thing.
No,
in the next 6 years.
Yeah.
6 years, Grenada back to full swing.
It takes a nutmeg tree about 15 years to come into real producing.
And I haven't gone since 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
Because when I talk to those people back home, my brother and them tell me the nutmeg almost back. The trees and them big, they're in the youth, they behind.
I remember we had this one nutmeg tree with branches probably about 40 feet in every direction.
Yeah.
It
coming
took
back
up a whole
4 or 5
area.
years.
And that one nutmeg, I don't see any nutmeg like it in Grenada now. I don't travel in the interior that much. But it was very big seed. You know what I'm talking about?
Back already,
and twice a week, when nutmeg in season, we would get a full basket of nutmeg below that.
Yeah, you're behind already, you're picking up your lot, man. Nutmeg is a funny thing.
Yeah.
When you're behind.
Okay, guys.
We didn't. Somebody, local, the old farmers, and then they knew very early whether or not a tree was male or female, and somehow
I know you're
that
supposed
institution,
to know.
Yeah,
How
that
do you know?
institutional knowledge
Huh?
has.
How do you know?
When he
Yeah,
make
my
the
father
board,
taught me.
when he make
Yeah.
the board, the board, if the node from the branch is thick, is a female. If it's
Yes.
thin, is a male.
It's a male. Very simple.
My
Yeah.
dad showed me as a little boy.
Okay.
And-
So
and
what's the percentage of male trees to female trees?
Male or less. But there is Mafuda in nutmeg tree too.
Really?
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. 2 trees that Mafuda in Grenada. Nutmeg tree and papaya.
And we struggling with.
You could see a Mafuda papaya tree too. Yeah. Yeah.
Listen to the student here tonight. I didn't know that. So
Yeah, I didn't. So let me ask you something. So hermaphrodite tree, would it bear?
It bear both male and female.
Okay. So it will self-pollinate.
wow.
You see male blossom and female blossom.
Oh.
Papaya too. And you have male papaya, pure male.
Okay. Wow. You muted Delma. You just see a
No, they
boat
born that
moving.
way. Nature make it like that.
Right. Wow. I learned something tonight.
Yeah.
You're my food, I know.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
And farmers know the best quality nutmeg seed to plant too.
Yeah,
But know about that.
Yeah.
You watch a nutmeg tree, and if it producing a lot and the seed is good size, you keep breeding that one.
You either have the big rum seed or the elongated
with the nice
one.
thickness, with the thickness.
Yeah.
But there's something that came out of SGU not too long ago where they could determine the male and female. They had to guess and get the old.
I'm sure. Yeah.
You could pull the leaf and watch the milk.
Yeah, SGU have some. There's some technology they use now. They could determine it easy. Yeah.
All right. Well, tonight is another productive night. Start from the BVI, come right on to Grenada.
Covering the Caribbean.
And one of the things about Gemfm, I know people are always surprised when they come in for 1 hour, they realize spend 3 or 4 hours, and they never thought that time flies so fast.
I know.
We don't do. One of the things that I think we're in the business of educating people, and we have educated people to share intelligently on any subject matter we have here. So I want to thank all of you for being here tonight to share your knowledge. And I really next week on the 30th, big on the 30th, putting together a team of people to recognize Indian arrivals in the Caribbean. I spoke to Mr. Hall, the author of the book Feather. He will be presenting on Grenada because he has written on that aspect of Indian arrival in Grenada. So he'll be here on the 30th of May to represent.
There's another good brother on that there are a couple good sites on Grenada Genealogical Society and some other stuff. One of the brothers on there is from Indian descent too, and usually provides some valuable information.
Well, Mr. Hall is also written and he has done some research on it to himself. So he will do the presentation on that. I have spoken to 2 Ghanese individuals. One have declined because she doesn't know much. The other one yet to get back to me. Mr. Hall is also looking up a guy from St. Vincent that he know who write extensively about Indian arrival in St. Vincent as well. He's a little bit older than him, but he go check and see if he sends up a COVID.
Interesting. They had Indian arrival in St. Vincent also?
Yeah, St. Lucia as well. Yeah.
Margaret, Martinique too. Martinique and Guadeloupe have a small amount.
But the reason why I was kind of like surprised about the reason I was so sort of surprised about St. Vincent is because St. Vincent was like, didn't have, unlike the other islands where you had such great influence between the British and the French and everybody changing over stuff. St. Vincent came late to the game of that level of colonization and stuff. So it was kind of like surprising to me.
In the smaller islands south is Tobago. Never had them.
I didn't know. After Trinidad, Jamaica, Guyana, and Jamaica, I think Grenada had the most people from India.
But a lot of Indian from Grenada went to Guyana and Trinidad because they were looking to plant rice.
Yeah.
They're learning Ovens Bay in the Soters, known as the Bushery. Ovens Bay. That's where all East Indian land in Grenada. Ovens Bay. Bushery. Where you got your TTV?
My grandmother is of Indian descent, great grandmother, and so on. So that aspect of that, I have a cousin who was talking. We were talking about it last week about the whole Indian arrival thing, and so that would be a subject that we'll be talking. I did last year by myself.
Also, there's actually a beach a little further on from the bushery. You have to climb above
Yeah,
and go
nice
down in
beach.
the
What
back
is the
of it.
name again? Oh shit.
Rattan Beach.
Rattan Beach. And you have some Indian living there. They used to
Yes,
tan leather.
yes.
That is where the
yes.
Budlals came from. The Budlal.
Yeah, that's where the Budlals
Right.
came from. Yeah. I know that very well.
So, okay,
Rattan Beach is one of the hidden gems in Grenada. Even people from St. Patrick's, a lot of people don't know about it.
Yeah, wait, what beach? Yeah. What's the name of it? That what? Rattan?
Rattan Beach. Yeah.
Nice beach.
I don't even know if it's on the map, but the locals like me, we used to.
Yeah, somebody put it up on Facebook. Beautiful beach.
All right.
So you have to track. You have to track to get it. You can't just walk off the side of the road and get to Rattan Beach. You have to know about it, and you have to know the quickest track to get to it. But it's some way that every Grenadian should enjoy before they die.
In a way, yeah, but in a way, I hope it remains a secret.
So well, somebody might find it out now.
All right.
But you know why? I'm saying that because everything is just so going into development. And it's not because I'm anti-development. It's just.
Yeah.
So the Caribbean know about that place and the French kill them off just so. I mean, that thing makes sense. The Caribbean know about that place. I mean, what kind of
do you know that? Huh? It's a good thing you said that. It's a good thing you said that. Do you know that Sutters have tunnels? Sutters town.
What?
Yeah.
There is tunnel in Sutters town.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. If you come in from you're not coming from the western side. You're coming from the eastern side. When you're coming up, when you pass the road for the same bushery Ovens Bay, right around there have a tunnel. Go down the Anglican.
So that's the point I'm making. That French story make less sense. Because if I listen, how these people back until they jump over this cliff?
No, the French kill those people.
Yeah,
that's the point.
Even that too. What we call Lepers Hill, there wasn't there. It was over by the Anglican school over there.
Anglican school is Lepers Hill.
Yeah, that story is nonsense. That story is totally
really?
Yeah,
so you're telling me all these years we are going and thinking is
that's
that
not Lepers Hill.
No, it's on the other side.
It's over by the Anglican school?
No, the Anglican church was the Catholic church.
Right. Over by the
and
Anglican
the British
church.
take it.
Yeah.
So that is where Lepers Hill is. It's not where they're telling people to go. But we know. Delbert know, I know.
Yeah,
so then why can't people like you when they correct that history and move it?
But nobody not moving it. Even on Real FM, Donald almost always telling them it's not there. And the people from Sutters telling them this is the way it is, but nobody listens.
The first person to have been determined to be diagnosed and die from sickle cell is buried in that cemetery in the war.
Yes.
The guy went to the States for treatment. That's where they discovered.
No, he went to study dentist.
Yeah.
So
we good.
So anytime you go Grenada and you want to see Lepers Hill, go behind the Anglican church.
I mean, I know
next time I'm going, you have to be there.
No. Seriously, I know that African church well because as cadets, that was like one the church. I know that area well.
Actually, Inspector grew up too, right there.
That church had catch a fire once too. There was a fire.
I just returned from Grenada and I took a friend up to the Hermitage Mountain to collect some real natural spring water,
Oh, you went to
yes. You know
the hot spring.
You know the spot. And we collected two or 3 gallons and used it for drinking water while we were there.
There's a boiling spring right by me, just like soda.
That she left Grenada feeling totally invigorated. The minerals in the water,
15 minutes from my home is a boiling spring.
Yeah.
Just like soda.
We went up to Toccola to collect some spring water.
And then when you go up to Chacha Mountain, there is a hot spring.
Actually, I went there the very day I landed. I drove straight up there because I know I wanted the water.
They had to organize that too. I mean, I realized that I know of this so well because I did, you know, as a kid, I spent, so when I say that, but when you guys tease and text about breadfruit and I say that the best breadfruit comes from Hermitage, that's because I really used to get breadfruit from Hermitage because I spent vacation up there with the Johns. They used to live, Uncle Butu and there was a big water tank. So I used to spend vacation with those Johns.
What? So you know Victoria and Norma and them?
I knew Estella and Sister May and Uncle Butu and me, that group of people that I spent.
The water
they were all Adventists though, because we all used to go.
You know Gugu Belly.
Right, Gugu Belly Hill. Exactly. Gugu Belly Hill.
By the way, they did a beautiful piece of work there.
Yeah.
Gugu Belly.
And you know, this is the first time I've seen in recent times that they actually fixed the road actually from the Tivoli Junction all the way up to Gugu Belly. Widen the entire.
So here's the thing about, you know, and as you guys say that, in the old days, your parents put you on a bus and send you up in the country. No, here's the thing. I'm not from the country. I got to know them because, in the old days too, people would leave the country and come down to work. So what basically happened was one of Sister May's daughter, Irene, came down to town to work. And she ended up renting a little place. Well, she had this boyfriend and they were renting a place in Richmond Hill, which was next to our property in Richmond Hill. So that's how I got to know her. And then Sister May came down and, they couldn't stay. So she stayed in our house when she came down and stuff. So that's how I got to know them. And then, when school closed, they invited me up to the thing.
Yeah, you
yeah, it's
Gugu
put me on the
Hill,
bus. Yeah, they put this kid on the bus and just tell the driver she gets enough on Gugu Belly.
Gugu Belly, man. Gugu Belly is a wonder of the world.
Yes, sir.
That was built action. Slaves that
built like this big. It had like this big tank there, so they were like living.
That's a reservoir.
Exactly.
You know the story of that reservoir. When they were building that reservoir, 3 men were covered in dust. They dig down, and there was one man, tall like Shaq O'Neal or like Ben Wallace, basketball player. The man name was Mass Wheel. But Mass Wheel was a guy that didn't like to eat things like salt, fish, and smoke it. He was a giant. So he always eat meat, canned meat, thing. So sometimes he used to raid the estate and get a small pig to cook. So he was in some case for some meat or some piggy thing. So he'll make a big jail. But because he was a giant, when the mole covered the people when they're digging down that reservoir, he dig them out and get them alive because he was a giant. Every time I watch Ben Wallace, the basketball player, it's like a
You remember him.
And it was the colonial days. You know what the judge do? They didn't send him to jail. They say he saved 2 people's life and they set him. True story.
Wow. Wow.
How many teach Peggy?
All right, get right in the next book between you and Toro.
Grenadian
Tales.
How many teachers have recent history?
How many teachers have about 12 reservoirs?
Yes.
The one on
when it comes to that.
And about 11 Peggy Swim.
Yeah. And
2 dams.
They trickle down, all coming down through Montreal and all these places.
Yeah, we saw the whole of St. Patrick always have water and part of St. Andrew.
Hold on.
But we have a special show on that. All right, John?
I'm saying
For the last one I will give you about Hermitage. Hermitage is the only village in Grenada had a major store, supply store. Every town in Grenada.
The village store.
Yeah, but Hermitage had a supply store, and every town in Grenada, including Hillsborough, Because Hermitage was a kind of proprietor village.
Yeah. Because it was supported by all because there were a lot of big farmers around that area.
Right,
Like that.
right.
So they supported that because farming was the thing back then. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we gotta do a session on village stories.
Yeah.
Oh, wonder we must talk
Definitely
about
village
stories in
stories.
Grenada, man. Talk about stories.
I want Margaret to host that show. Margaret.
Oh yeah, I love stuff like that, and it's great because so many people have died or are dying, and these stories are dying with them.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, based on my calendar here, the first Saturday in June will be up to do that. How about that?
Okay, we're gonna do one. We talk about Grenada stories and all the things we know.
First Saturday.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay, that will be beautiful.
And there are some good storytellers still around, eh?
Yeah. Look one did the one that is bigging up the carnage. That's
and I want Toro to tell me about the volcano in Port St. Louis.
Right.
Yes. My mom was
Kirani James Boulevard.
Yes.
Yeah, actually,
I only learned about that very recently,
Well, hear what? My mom, and I have to ask mommy if she remembers, because she was telling me a story that her grandmother told her about when that place erupted. I gotta ask her about that again.
Yeah.
I think that the wharf story is a big story to be told. And I see Toro been doing a lot of that. And
yes, yeah.
Okay. Another thing I see you do, and I wanted to host a show on that on Gemfm, is to talk about the history of the town of St. George's, because there's a lot of things that people come to town and they just go in the market and go back home. But there's more to St. George's than just the market square.
Of course.
Bianca C story, the statue out there, how that started to become part of our heritage.
By the way, guys,
certainly
St. George's was on its way to becoming, like, I forget what you call it, not a UN UNESCO site, whatever, but we were kind of
a World Heritage Site.
Yeah.
So
we were determined to have lost that trend in the last 20 years or so because the quality of the construction in St. George's has not sort of maintained the historical nature of the place, and the architecture has
I think it started with courts. When courts paint over everything in yellow and blue, that kind of changed the ambience of the whole thing. The courts building.
Just change it. That's correct. But and I remember, because it's kind of like, I remember when I was in high school, who got me really into Grenada history? Miss Martineau. She's dead and gone. But Miss Martineau in high school, she used to read, she read so much from the Grenada handbook. So a lot of times when I see people who say, I remember, oh yes, I remember that. Even that, the reason why Ballast Ground is called Ballast, why it was referred to as Ballast Ground, is because the ships coming in, they brought in all of that, the ballast and stuff that they dumped. And apparently a lot of the bricks that you see in the building was part of the ballast that came and that the ship. Yes. So those are all stories. Those are all stories.
Like even in town on Grenville Street and St. John Street, there are a lot of back roads and little place, like someone was talking about caves and things in Sauters. There are a lot of little tunnels you could pass and go through and go down and all that.
Yes, and they're all like these. You notice they're like some of these places that had like similar buildings to places in Europe and towns where you would see like a little door. Yes. And you open this door and you go through and you end up in a courtyard. And you would find that there are lots of places like that, as Toro said.
They're built for walk. They're built for walk. Even that church. The church on Church Street.
Yeah.
That was a Catholic church.
Okay. So
what the British took and turned it to an Anglican church.
Right.
Oh yes. So yeah, we definitely that is definitely a thing.
Hold on now, guys. Hold on. So Margaret, the first Saturday in July.
I think we're losing internet.
Yeah, in June is yours. Toro, you have to come up with the St. George's, the wharf history and that. So let's do that month from June. In June, let's put that history together, and then we will get people to know the history of Grenada in depth. Get a little bit of the parishes, historical synopsis on St. George's, and to I listen and I read your stories and the wharf. I read your stories and other people of importance. The probably people don't pay attention who they are, but
John, there's a gentleman named Winston George. He's a retired police officer. He on Facebook. He on Facebook. We have a local name for him. Oh man, we got to get him on that show. You got to get him.
He wrote a book too. He wrote a book.
Okay.
Yeah, he wrote a book. But I mean, the book doesn't take up his full knowledge about it. Not just St. Patrick.
But he is a walking dictionary.
Okay, guys, hold on. I want to say that let's leave Toro to muster that up for his show, the second Saturday in June. Right, Toro?
Okay. Toro,
all right.
you have to tell us about the bamboo tree by Regal Cinema. I understand about the bamboo tree.
And we had to talk about S.A. Francis, who at one time owned almost all of St. George's. S.A. Francis,
right, yes, I want to hear that. Yeah, I want to hear that.
First black millionaire.
Because I always heard about that. It's amazing the things that I heard.
This is the man who had own everybody's stuff.
Yeah. So
and horse racing.
Leave that up to Toro to put together for the second Saturday in June, 8 p.m. right here in Gemfm. With the usual suspect. All right, guys. All right, you let that happen. And Margaret, your thing. All right.
All right. I'm trying.
Okay.
Yeah. So that'll be great. Well, again, we had a very good night. The time is almost 12 o'clock.
Okay.
You know what about us? We always have extensive conversation. I'll learn a lot tonight. So this is what we get out of this. We have 2 shows coming out of what we talk about tonight. You know what I mean? Out of our conversation. So in the 30th is Indian arrival. The first Saturday will be Margaret with
Hudson, right? Hudson.
Stories out from the villages, yeah.
Village story. Yes, we talk about things in the village what gone.
So
what we remember.
Your Hudson, Margaret co-host that, and then Toro and Delbert could bring who you want on that show, invite who you want to that show to have that St. George's historical talk about. I think it's important, because I think if people don't know the history of where they are, they will accept anything that is given to them. So I think that would be a great thing to do. All right. So
okay. Problem. Yes, brother.
Right. So nice having you. It has been a plum as well as a privilege. Thank you guys so much. And keep
have a good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, guys. Later.
Good night, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Good night.
Night.
All right. Yes, you'll be listening to Gemfm, the talking point with the usual suspect, Lincoln Deputy in Hudson George, Deborah Baptiste, and none other than Margaret Francis, a journalist from Greater from 1979 to 1983 from the PRG, and Lincoln Deputy from the PRG, the GIS services. There's 2 former journalists from that era. Hudson George is a walking library and a historian himself, and Delbert, it's what he call social media policy junkie. And you have yours truly, John Kelly, the host and owner of Gemfm Radio and Genesis Magazine. We do it here every Saturday night from 8 o'clock until 12. Well, I'm going to let you play some good Caribbean music. Good night. Sonia Martin Scott, Yvonne Joseph, Doris Moraine, John Fleming, Philip Dustin Alexander. Who we guys got here? Rachel John, how you doing? And we have Miss Tessa Barry and all of those listening over on the YouTube channel and on WhatsApp. A pleasant good night to you and enjoy until 12 o'clock some good music.
No more. Only then we'll stay no more. We'll beg no more. We'll stoop no more. Only then we'll be no more. We cannot live forevermore, subjected shore, reflecting our dice and shake against our ancestral name.
And then no warriors left among us to rise and shine. No heroes left to rise up unto the shrine. No martyrs in our history for the youth to do. Scholars died to make us free. Puffy died to make us free. Gandhi died to make us free. Must all these warriors die in vain while we go back to slavery once again?
If you think the Bible is done, my brother, and you are writing
An illusion, an illusion.
You talk of progress, love and justice, peace and unity.
All illusion, all illusion. We have no hold on these our native islands. Our hands are tied, we don't control our actions. From the we forward together in a social endeavor, our own social control. We slave no more, we slave no more.
Only then we'll stay no more. We'll beg no more,
We'll stoop no more.
only then we'll need no more.
Yes, don't forget to check out Cookies Pastry Delight in Grenville, Ben Jones Street in Grenville.
Let's drop it.
Cookies Pastry Delight,
We've got
Crystal and Leonard.
unite
Every Wednesday night and Friday night, Afro's Chicken in Simon.
generation.
Yes, get your chicken, get your pork and your rabbit.
This region don't need one down. If we can be independent as one, the economical policies are disheartening. The people's voices are ringing. We are tired of living a life of total subjection. Told what to spend and what to keep. God knows sometimes we ain't even have enough to eat. If you think the battle is done, my brother, and you are riding an illusion, an illusion.
You talk of progress, love and justice, peace and unity.
All illusion, all illusion. We have no hold on these our native islands. Our hands are tied, we don't control our actions. From the we forward together in a social endeavor, our own social control. We slave no more, we slave no more.
Only then we'll stay no more. We'll beg no more,
We stoop no more.
only then we'll need no more.
Yes, that was the man King Shot out of Antigua. And again, tonight we want to thank all of you who are listening and been listening on the radio and on Facebook. Don't forget to check us out on the website at www.gemfm.ca and just make a donation to us to help us to keep this radio station alive on live, yes, on the internet, on Facebook, and help us to upgrade our system here at Gemfm. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, Mother's Day. And to all the mothers listening to us around the world, I want to say Happy Mother's Day to all of you from Gemfm, and say all of you to from all of us here at Gemfm, and to those mothers who are still cutting and contriving to make ends meet, the single mothers especially. We want to thank God for you for raising children, and sometimes even there's husbands in the house, they still raise the children almost all by themselves. So again, the strength of the woman. Again, God bless you and make you a blessing. And that the children that you raise will be a blessing to somebody else. So God bless you and make you a blessing. And this is King Shot. I will talk about what happened in BVI here tonight. I just want to play those songs in recognition of that. When?
When will we learn to live together? When will we learn to love each other? When will we learn to trust our brother? When will we live one for another? Lord, I search, but I can't find. Need a love, true happiness. happiness, a peace divine. Sometimes I feel like I want to scream and scream and scream and scream. Sometimes, Lord, I feel I could scream. When will mankind turn from their evil? When will the children rise and shine? When will crime, violence and corruption? When will they leave the hearts of mankind? Lord, I search and I search, but I can't find neither purity, grace, or truth in mankind. Sometimes I feel like I want to scream and scream and scream and scream. Sometimes, Lord, I feel I could scream. When will our dreams become utopia? When will our sorrow cease to be? When will the poor no longer hunger? When will mankind be truly free? Lord, I search and I search, but I can't find the land of milk and honey and rivers full of wine. Sometimes I feel like I want to scream and scream and scream and scream. Sometimes, Lord, I feel I could scream. And vegans, wake up, open up your eyes. Your country needs you. Hope you realize our government is abusing its power and authority, and it is having adverse effects on the whole country. It is time for us to take a stand. After all, this is our native land. That is why I came back to sing, to expose the wicked things they're perpetrating. It is only time for the self-destruct. Greed and power is their TNT. Their purpose in government was for the bucks. They don't really care about this country. All the scheming, conniving plans have caught up with them. They are facing insurmountable problems, and just as sure as the sun will rise, this government must fall. The handwriting is on the wall. If with him you don't agree, you can't progress in your country. Our government has no respect for the business community. No dialogue, they only causing laws indiscreetly. Taxing the poor ones who have no money, while is only time for the self-destruct. Greed and power is the TNT. Their purpose in government was for the bucks. They don't really care about this country. All the scheming, conniving plans have caught up with them. They are facing insurmountable problems, and just as sure as the sun will rise, this government must fall. The handwriting is on the wall.
That the judge will go and fight Saddam for oil. He should come here in Grenada, like he said, and take over. You see, we have a set of Satan, don't be going around pretending they love we, robbing the poor in high society. Politicians don't care leading the crew, they don't care about me, they don't care about you. And right now, their so-called friend doing it too. Cause yesterday I went to clear my van. When I hear the price from the custom, I know that little black man is Satan. Just next door I went to change money. When I see how they rob that old lady, I know that banker man is Satan. When I see that chichi man minister threatening to jail me and the newspaper, I know that girl queen is Satan. Satan running the country, Satan in the treasury, they robbing everybody, in parliament do I see. Satan running the country, Satan in the treasury, they robbing everybody, in parliament do I see. Satan, la-di-do-di, li-di-da-di, good God, la-di-do-di. Satan don't get that qualify, and they're very good to telling, like believe me, some hard to identify. In the ministry, some of them walking, only sabotage, they sabotage in them union. Leader is Satan King. Some of them they hiding behind the law. Some of them they posing as big lawyer, Grenada. Have too much Satan monster. Cause yesterday I went to clear my van. When I hear the price from the custom, I know that little black man is Satan. Just next door I went to change money. When I see how they rob that old lady, I know that banker man is Satan. When I see how that ballet sent to me, innocently my friends try to jail me, I know that wicked man is Satan. Satan running the country, Satan in the treasury, they robbing everybody, in parliament do I see. Satan running the country, Satan in the treasury, they robbing everybody, in parliament do I see. Satan, la-di-do-di, li-di-da-di, good God, la-di-do-di, li-di-da-di. California don't get them Satan too. They in the art from giving trouble, oh my God, them is the true devil. Big scholar and boss raider, black wizard and many other pussycat, Glenny Satan brother. Everything they touch it keep vanishing. Californian money 5 years missing, and right now Sadu want to they start tipping. Cause yesterday I went to clear my van. When I hear the price from the custom, I know that little black man is Satan. Just next door I went to change money. When I see how they rob that old lady, I know that banker man is Satan. When I see his big Californian going on with squad beating poor man, I know that policeman is Satan. Satan running the country, Satan in the treasury, they robbing everybody, in parliament do I see. Satan running the country, Satan in the treasury, they robbing everybody, in parliament do I see. Satan, la-di-do-di, li-di-da-di, good God, la-di-do-di, li-di-da-di. Satan ripping everything to the country with money they shipping daily, and that is a real great thing. Even my sisters they underpaying, some of them to them Syrian raping, and about that we Satan government doing nothing. Them Satan well bad they don't make him joke. All that them can't they sell me passport, even me. Them Satan try to cut my throat. But yesterday I went to clear my van. When I hear the price from the custom, I know that little black man is Satan. Just next door I went to change money. When I see how they rob that old lady, I know that banker man is Satan. When I see your Grenadian suffering, only thief and night and ballet pushing, I must say, all of them man is Satan. Satan running the country, Satan in the treasury, they robbing everybody, in parliament do I see. Satan running the country, Satan in the treasury, they robbing everybody, in parliament do I see. Satan.
Yes, that's the man African teller from yesterday. This one called Inflation. Not a better time for this song. See, that's how Calypso right Calypso, right for the future and the present.
Just keep preaching for the poor ones they are fighting, but not such a thing. Because every day when I make a pass by the shop, I could see the price keep going up on the poor ones stand. And the riches, like it's missing men that believe, and like no one they can break it. So they condemn me, because every day when I make a pass by the shop, I can see the price keep going up. On the poor's back, and the riches, like it's missing men that believe, and like no one they can break it. So they condemn me. Well, if this is in the interest of the poor ones, I would not like to see it in the interest of the rich ones, because they is the one I see keep on owning, while the poor ones keep on squanting, suffering and dying. Because every day when I make a pass by the shop, I could see the price keep going up on the poor ones side. And the riches, like it's missing men that believe, and like no one they can break it, so they condemn me. Because every day when I make a pass by the shop, I can see the price keep going up on the poor ones side. And the riches, like it's missing men that believe, and like no one they can break it, so they condemn me. Far as I could see, instead of people want their freedom, they only keep on exploiting, abusing and keep them down. Because we have to work so hard to earn something, while some men only sit down weeping, laughing and believing. Because every day, when I make a pass by the shop, I could see the price keep going up on the poor one's side. And the riches, like it's missing men that believe, and like no one they can break it, so they condemn me. Because every day, when I make a pass by the shop, I can see the price keep going up on the poor one's side. And the riches, like it's missing men that believe, and like no one they can break it, so they condemn me.
Well, the time is now 12 o'clock. That's why I got to kick the chair to the rail and get out of here. I hope you did enjoy tonight's show. Again, we thank you very much for listening. Those of you who's on Facebook, thank you very much. Those of you on the YouTube Black channel, please love it, like it, and share it. Don't keep it to yourself. We are more than happy to have you here with us. Join us every day, 24 hours of radio programming. We're on Facebook. Radio still continues at www.gemfm.ca. Come on, share it and tell somebody about it. This is the man, African Teller, the man of truth. This one called Inflation.
Most time I just vex, cause I know I see what's happening, and yet still man some of my people look behind them as dogs begging. They cannot see how the vampire society keep on sucking we just because of money. Because every day when I make a pass by the shop, I could see the price keep going up on the poor one's side. And the riches, like it's missing men that believe, and like no one they can break it, so they can't.
Just remember that this show has been brought to you by Cookies Pastry Delight on Benjamin Street in Grenville, St. Andrews. Check them out every day for your best treats and the goodies that goes with the kitchen and the regular treats, sitting and eating, just munching on the finger foods. Check them out right there at Benjamin Street in Grenville, St. Andrews, Grenada. Let them know that you heard it on Gemfm.
Some of people do not like my episodes because of opportunity. But I do know the time will come when you of yourself will recognize what I am doing towards the poor ones. So I do hope this message will go floating in the air as a natural penetration towards the ears of all the leaders throughout the world, so that they can see the needs of the poor ones. This is something coming from the man of truth, better known as the man African teller. Chanting with the power of Jah Rastafari, Selassie I the first. Hey! Oh,